What's up, everybody? Thank you so much for being with us here tonight. We are back with episode number 3 of the Pigskin Profits, and entering your screen now are Set Profits. I am your host, Nick Sisson of N2 Media, and alongside, as always, our co-hosts, we've got Tyson McCallum, Pacific Radar Northwest, or PNW on X, and then Devin Record, formerly of the Whatcom Community College men's basketball team, and also an avid sports writer in the state of Washington. How you guys doing tonight?
Doing great. How are you doing tonight?
I'm feeling a little different. It's like the third different look. I did the hair the first time, and I did the hat last time. Now the hair is just like, it kind of look like Little Dicky. So, little Nicky.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh my.
So it's like, I'm trying to find my groove, I guess. After last week, man, I'll tell you what, I need to find my groove. That's for damn sure.
That's right. You're last, right?
Yeah. Yeah. By a lot.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess we'll just start off right there. Last week was the first week, obviously, of the season. Thank God. So glad that we got some football back in our DNA once again to kind of dissect and live and breathe and also relive. We're going to relive some of those moments from last week a little bit later on in the show. We've got a couple highlights that were sent in to us. Devin, thank you for brokering that on Twitter, and athletes, thank you so much for sending in those highlights so we can have a chance to kind of showcase what you're all doing out there on the Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights out there in the state of Washington, and then in some cases against other teams in other states here in the non-conference slate. But we had 20 games last week. Devin was unfortunately not able to join us live, but he did join us on paper with his picks. And so Tyson and Devin, you guys are tied at the top so far. Both of you guys went 14-6. And the only reason that you guys tied is because Devin and I allowed Tyson a last-minute change on the show last week, as I could cut up and prove it in audio. He chose against Ridgefield, chose against them. He said, I'm picking WF West, guys. Well, a day and a half later, he messaged us, and he goes, you know what? I'm not really feeling so hot about that WF West pick. The more I look at it, I think Ridgefield's really gonna be the team. They're going to surprise some guys. And so we initially said no, but just because it turned out that he was right, we're going to give him the benefit of the doubt. Ridgefield goes on the road and beats a very, very tough team in WF West. So we gave him the nod there. That puts you guys at 14-6 in week 1. Gentlemen, how does that feel, first off?
Pretty solid start, honestly. I feel like I should technically be a spot behind Devin still, just because he, if we're going to talk about some other surprise picks, he's the one guy that chose Highline out of us 3. So it feels like he is the top profit, and I'm kind of the asterisk 14-6, but I'll take it.
Yeah. Devin, what do you think?
I was surprised that I got 14 right. I'm being honest.
Bonus points should be awarded. If there was a tiebreaker in week 1, that the Highline pick over Rainier Beach would probably be the one for me to put you over the top for sure. 12-8 for me last week. Guys, I'm going to be honest with you. I feel lucky to have picked up 12 somehow. Feels nice, I guess, to be above 500, 4 games above 500, but I don't think that that's as solid as a start as I was hoping for. But hey, and the other thing that really made it worse is that in the local Pigskin Profits, which, by the way, powered by the Daily News down here in Cowlitz County and beyond, but our Pigskin Profits here in the Daily News, Thursday, I was 0-3 for the local teams here in Longview, Kelso. Picked Mark Morris to beat Battleground, picked Castle Rock to beat R.A. Long, and then I picked Kelso to beat Timberline. Oh my God, not even close. Triple. So that's not going to work, man.
You'll be the local Jim Moore.
Oh my gosh, Jim. Yeah. I'll tell you what, man. That's a sidebar that is it's worth having that conversation. It's not just Jim Moore. There's just a lot of really hating energy going on. I think everyone's just kind of disdain that the Pac-12 is kind of turning into the Pac-0. So it's like, we're going to give every team the worst grade we possibly can. The only grade that's kind of justifiable is like Arizona State beating Southern Utah by like 3 points. That's like the only real embarrassing win that
Nope.
the 12 had. But I think it's like one of the first weekends where they won every single game that they played.
Yeah.
So I mean,
12-0. Good start.
Yeah, Jim Moore though, he's a total Cougar homer and Husky hater. So, all right, so guys, we just mentioned real quick the records for last week. Let's kind of talk a little bit about how we got those records. No pun intended with Devin record here, by the way. So we got the first game, Lake Stevens against Garfield, and we had someone rewatch the first show that we did where we did our season previews, and they commented and said that we need to do our homework when it comes to Lake Stevens, and apparently they might be correct because Lake Stevens dominated this game 48-21. And Tyson, you and I both had Garfield, and Devin, I think you're not off the hook there either. I'm pretty sure you had Garfield also. So all three of us completely shit the bed on that one. Lake Stevens, gets some revenge losing that game to Garfield last season, but they win this one in a laugher by 4 touchdowns. Thoughts on the game number 1 that we're talking here between Lake Stevens and Garfield?
I was definitely surprised it was that big of a difference in the game, but Kamanong's the number 1 quarterback in the state, but I don't know if you saw the quote from Tom Try that I think it was, I don't know, it was the paper that got it or that J425, but he said their coaches all week were talking about how good Kamanong was and that they need to prepare for him. And his quote was essentially, well, I think our guy's better. And their stat line, Matson had a heck of a game.
Devin, you got anything on that game?
Yeah, I think Lake Stevens really, really impressed me, especially, the offensive line, biggest stat of the game. No quarterback pressures allowed, so Colton was able to sit back, do his thing, and he was really impressive. I think EJ had 221 yards, and 2 of them were long touchdowns. I'm pretty sure he had over 7-yarder to Clark and then another 50, 60-yarder to Witherspoon. So, he wasn't able to get anything going, which impresses me for the Lake Stevens defense-wise, which I think, they're a big team to watch going forward and a lot favorite in a lot of games, I think.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just what we talked about at the season preview show was that, their league is very winnable, for them, and to be able to, get some non-conference games like this that are going to, sharpen them up for another postseason run. And they're going to have another one of those games coming up this weekend. We'll get to that a little bit later on here in the show. I don't want to spend too much time on each individual game. Let's just kind of rapid fire and keep going here. The next one, we had Emerald Ridge and Puyallup, and it was Emerald Ridge 36, Puyallup 23. I believe that this was the first win that Emerald Ridge recorded against Puyallup since 2017. So that's a, good step for them in the right direction. And, with it being this early in the season, guys, I think it's really hard to get a feel for how every team truly is, when it comes to how good they're going to be by the time you get to week 8, week 9 of the season. And I think Puyallup is one of those programs that, it's proven that it's got some staying power. I wouldn't be shocked to see them still, in the top 4, maybe top 3 of SPSL this year. But a big win for Skokel and company, win by 13 points. Thoughts on that game at all, gentlemen?
Yeah, that's about the difference I thought it would be. I don't know a lot about Emerald Ridge's defense, but if anything, I thought maybe they would hold Puyallup to less points in that game. Puyallup lost a lot. They still have some good players, but I think it was obviously Emerald Ridge showed their offense is pretty fluid, ready to go.
Devin, thoughts on that game at all?
I second everything Tyson said.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, hey, when it comes to competing for a state championship, I mean, baby steps along the way. Beat a team that you lost to last season, and you win by 2 scores. I think that anytime that happens, you're moving in the right direction. There's still going to be some stiffer tests down the road. Obviously, for Emerald Ridge, and it's another hyphenated team in Graham Kapowson. And I don't have them listed on the games that we did last week, but boy, they sure looked impressive and have a ton of firepower. So already circling that game up ahead in the calendar, guys.
Yeah, that looks like the one that'll decide that league this year. Sumner's no slouch either, but I'd say those two passing attacks are got to be as good as it gets, besides maybe Lake Stevens and a couple others that we might mention here a bit later.
Next game is Yelm against Camas, and I took Yelm in this one, and so did you two, and we barely got out of Dodge. 8-7, what a barn burner that was down in Camas. I didn't have the guts to say that Camas was going to be game for Yelm here, but they got embarrassed the year before at Yelm. And Camas has been a 4A team that's been, very proud in scheduling non-conference and, trying to get good games to get them ready for the playoffs. And this is one of those games to where Camas had every opportunity to win, gentlemen, and Yelm somehow survives. It's weird, the last two games that they've won. You've got one, obviously in the state championship game with Ron Kilo ripping the ball out of the safety's hands. And then in this one, they block a field goal, which is from PAT distance. But there was also a video sent in from some folks in the stands that showed a play before that field goal attempt, and it looked as if the running back probably got in but was blown short of the goal line. It ends up being huge. What are your thoughts on week number one? Did we look into this a lot? Is Yelm maybe going to be in a little bit of more competition this year, or is this more of an indictment on Camas being ready to go?
I think it's like a Camas is ready to go sort of thing. I think Yelm is as good as they were last year. They're going to be, they're going to blow teams out of the water just like they beat Camas last year, But speaking of that video that was sent in by Camas running back Titan Brody, I watched it many times. To me, it looks like he's in. I don't have the goal line view, I guess, so I'm not sure. But still shout out to the Yelm defense to be able to stop them on the goal line anyway, multiple times. I don't think that was the only time either. So.
Yeah, I'm with you on the touchdown, non-touchdown, we should say. But, I mean, seeing the same video replay, I mean, it looks pretty obvious that, his upper half is across the line on the time that his knees hit down. But, the officials there have a better look at it than we do on that video. And, the officials don't have the luxury of looking at that video during the game to make that decision. But nonetheless, I'm with you on that side of the fence, Devin, that I think Camas was just ready to go. And, anytime that you're the defending champion of winning a state classification, everybody's going to be giving you their best shot. And, Camas has always, like I said, been a good program down here. And I think Yelm's still going to be just fine. Tyson, what were your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I'd say Yelm's going to be just fine. Camas obviously was prepared and ready to go for the game, probably much improved. But without watching the game, I would assume Yelm was just kind of tinkering in the first half on offense. Don't really know. They've got a lot of weapons, so getting into a fluid motion in the game is what I would assume happened to them. And by the time they realized, this is a tight game, they had no fluidity to their offense. Obviously, the defense, like they say, defense always travels, and theirs did at least. But I would assume we'll see them get rolling offensively in the next couple of weeks.
Next game was Kamiakin and Chiawana, and boys, just like it did last season, this one goes into overtime this year again. Kamiakin comes back from down a touchdown to tie it up, and then they end up winning it in OT 20-13, and that was on the road at Chiawana. Hey, that was one I actually had Kamiakin winning in. So, despite 12-8, I went out on the limb and, picked the quote underdog in that one. But I don't know if they were so much of an underdog. I think both teams showed a tremendous amount of promise heading in, towards for the season opener. I think that they'll both be just fine, and I wouldn't be shocked to see, the winner of this game look back and this had been the reason why they could have potentially won the league championship. Thoughts on Kamiakin and Chiawana at all, gentlemen?
Both teams were super strong defensive teams last year, and I expected maybe Chiawana's offense to expand a little bit more with DJ Duran, obviously. having a senior year, but Kamiakin showed their defense is nails for second year in a row. It seems like they don't ever surrender more than 13 points when you start looking back at their schedule. So I'm really excited to see them take on an explosive offense this week, and it'll kind of be a testament to where that league is at this point in the year.
With that defense, I mean, half of it is shut down completely. With David Cuckoo, he's not giving up anything over there. And everything comes his way. It could be a pick or it's an incomplete pass. He is very, very solid, I think. And, I think the defense showed a lot. And I think that they're going to be a team to watch, especially after that performance last week against Chihuahua.
Yeah, I love the sentiments from both of you. Tyson, the big takeaway that I, hear from you is that you'd like to see Kamiakin be a little bit more tested by a team that's got, a little bit more offensive prowess. And I don't think that comment should be taken as a slight to Chihuahua at all. It's just that Chihuahua's strength is on the defensive side of the ball, whereas Kamiakin's is on the offensive side with their offensive line play. That was stylistically a very good matchup for those two teams to play one another. And I would be very interested to see how Kamiakin's defense holds up against, let's say, this week's opponent, which we'll get to a little bit later. Ultimately, though, once Chihuahua gets their offense going and, they're able to, help the defense out a little bit, they're going to be in every single game that they play. Their defense is going to be able to keep their opponents down, and their defense nearly did it this time against Kamiakin had it not been for a fourth quarter touchdown to tie the ball game up. They're winning that one, and they're 1-0 in the season. And they were last year's final team to be undefeated in the whole state of Washington. So I think both these teams are in great shape, but I am with you, Tyson, on looking forward to seeing what kind of a test that they're going to get from a high-powered offense. And, you may not get too many looks at that this season with their total schedule, but looking back on it, I think this week's game against Moses Lake is going to be very telling to see how far Kamiakin ends up going. For Chihuahua, again, I think they'll be just fine and handle their business. Wouldn't be shocked to see, like I said, this game determine who ends up taking first place already here in week number 1. So that's the first 4 games. The next one, man, this was a close one. Gig Harbor at Spanaway Lake, and Spanaway Lake ends up getting a 5-point win, 26-21, right down to the wire there. I mean, Gig Harbor came out and played pretty hard. They moved the ball pretty well through the air, and Spanaway Lake did just enough, got some big plays throughout the ball game that, ultimately made the difference. What were your guys' thoughts on Spanaway's 5-point win?
Darian Clemens. It's about all I have to say. I think he impacted the game in every way possible on both sides of the ball. Scared the game-winning touchdown. He had a pick 6 and I think, 1 more offensive or 2 more offensive touchdowns. So I kind of mentioned him when we talked Players of the Year, episode 1, and he definitely made a great case as far as being a two-way player that is very capable of doing that, especially the fact he's only a junior. He's going to be – he'll probably be a 4-star recruit by the time it's all said and done, at the least, I would assume.
I second that completely, and as he told me the other day, he read that play before it even happened.
That's good film study. Gotta love that.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see it in the video, which someone may or may not get a chance to see later on. But, yeah, it was a non-league game, but we'll see how telling it's going to be for both teams. I think Gig Harbor played pretty good, honestly, in that game on the road, considering how their season ended last year, and their offense didn't really seem to miss a beat. They still attacked the exact same way that they want to. They had some success throwing the ball. They actually took the lead to start the game out. So all in all, I think Gig Harbor played pretty well in this game, despite not coming up with the win. The next game we had was Curtis and Olympia. Man, this one seemed close early. I mean, but by the time the game was over with, Curtis had a 45-13 win. Not nearly as close as the year before, where it was a 1-point game, 38-37. So Curtis is off and running in SPSL 4A play. Any thoughts on that game at all, gentlemen?
2 words again, Rocco Koch. I mean, he might have shown that he's probably the best dual threat quarterback, if not, well, maybe not the best, but one of the best that we have in the state. Kind of just taking the reins down there in that area from Jabari last year. But as far as someone who's going to beat you with his legs and his arm, he definitely took that game over.
Yeah, I agree with that. He was really impressive.
More to come for Curtis, obviously. They got a couple of opponents that they're going to be, having a struggle against to figure out a way to get up higher in the standings this year, and Graham Kapowson and Emerald Ridge and Puyallup and Sumner, to name a few. But good start for them, and a lot better than the year prior, that's for sure. And, a 1-point win is a 1-point win, but still, this is much better than that. Next game, yeah, this is the first of my real stinkers here. Timberline 31, Kelso 3. Just, probably not the start that the Highlanders had drawn up, although they did hang tough for the first 3 quarters. It was, I think, 9-3 going into the fourth, and then Timberline salted it away with 22 points in the fourth quarter. Highlanders got to do better this week playing Capital. That's for dang sure. Any thoughts on Timberline beating Kelso 31-3 at all?
Certainly didn't think it was going to be that big of a differential. I didn't really get to read a story about how the game unraveled, but I don't know if you have any details on that. But I mean, it picked it right. Didn't just predict that score.
Yeah, no, you did great. That's a good win for Timberline, though. Starting off their season with a win against a team that they lost to the year prior. You can't, and it finished in the fourth quarter, finished strong. Scoring 3 touchdowns in the final quarter is very, very, very positive for any team. It just shows that you can endure, because Kelso's style is to try to pound the ball right at you. So if you're fresh in the fourth quarter and you're able to continue to pound the rock yourself and endure the punishment, it's a good sign for a team like Timberline. And, I'm not saying that Yelm looks vulnerable, because I don't necessarily think that based off of how the game went against Camas, but it is a good sign for a team like Timberline, who's in that mix for, that second place, maybe even first place spot. So we'll see how Timberline continues its season, and we'll see how the Highlanders rebound this upcoming week, taking on Capital. Next game, oh boy, I just didn't have the balls to say Ferndale, but the Ferndale Golden Eagles, baby, 17-13 over Linden. What the hell happened this weekend?
What a game. Shout out Bishop Utsi, quarterback for Ferndale, just facilitating that offense and, taking his time each drive, really, playing it safe. He played really smart, and, that's really what got it done, is they took care of the ball, and, he drove them down the field when they needed to, and they got the job done. And I think Ferndale, I wasn't expecting it either. Like I said, I said the key was Bishop, I think is what I mentioned, like how he would play and, how he would do, not having the big time running back in the backfield, but he did a great job. And I think they're definitely a 3A team to watch. Huge win.
Oh yeah.
They're a team that is so true to their style. I think that benefited them in that game the most. They dominated time of possession, stuck with their typical wing tee, occasional shot play with Bishop. I know he connected in the fourth quarter for one, I think for 37 yards. And Linden, I think it's pretty much like Ferndale gave Linden a taste of their own medicine that they've had for years, where they just had their style. They didn't waver from it. They didn't bend from it. Now Linden's trying to go to a different offense. I know Brant Hepner was only 10 of 26 in that game, connected for some good big plays in the second half. But, it's like they were kind of trying to find their footing is what it sounded like, reading that. And obviously relying, when was the last time Linden threw 26 passes in a game? Probably a decade ago, I would assume. Ferndale's just got a system, and that system showed that if you just run the ball and play defense, you can beat anybody. So I think that for me was the biggest key to that game, was one person sticking to their identity and a team trying to find their new one.
Yeah, I like what you guys are both saying there, and we talked about it in the first week of our broadcast, episode 1. what version of Linden are you going to get when you're trying to switch your offensive identity? And, you definitely want to play to the strengths of your quarterback, especially when that quarterback is 6'6" and can sling it all over the field. But how long do you go with the experiment? There's another team in the Northwest Conference that we could talk about in terms of going with an experimental offense here. And how long are you ultimately going to stick with it? I mean, obviously, we probably don't want to tread the water of being coaches, sitting here doing this show. But at the same time, the results in our eyes showed us, what a team can do if they just kind of stick with the identity that they, the blueprint that they came up with. I'm just wondering if this is a theme for weeks to come, whether or not Linden's going to kind of struggle a little bit to get going. But let's not take anything away from Ferndale here, guys. I like what you're all saying here in terms of controlling the pace and doing what you're good at. They've got a winnable schedule as well. They've got a winnable league. They could definitely be one of those teams with one loss, maybe undefeated by the time the season's all over with. And I don't think that Linden's done by any stretch. The last time that they lost a game, I mentioned it last week, they had a 24-game winning streak, and the last thing they lost to was Ferndale. And all they did was win the rest of their games and win the state championship. So it ain't over yet. But I think that this does give a sliver of hope for those other teams in line in 2A, especially in league. When you look at how Cedro played this last weekend and you look at how Seaholm played this last weekend, those two teams right there, and you might even throw in Archbishop to that conversation. I mean, guys, Linden's not out of the woods here. They've got to figure out a way to get back to Linden's brand of football, or at least execute just a little bit better. And they should be okay. I'm looking forward to this next week's game. Anything else on that before we head into the next game? Okay. Sunnyside and Prosser, man, another really good game. I think we did a great job, guys, of picking some games that, weren't so easy to tell. And we're not just picking layups here. Prosser does end up getting the victory, but it was in overtime, 29-23 against Sunnyside. We do have a highlight from that game to show you guys a little bit later on. But talk to me a little bit, guys, about Prosser's win against Sunnyside in your opinion. I think it's a good win because Prosser is an underclass team playing, against a fairly decent 4A team, correct, in Sunnyside? And or are they 3A? I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think they're 4A.
I think you're right. I mean, Prosser's a team that got kind of left standing in the cold last year, just with that late season loss against Ephrata. And they have some talented players, but they got a tough non-conference schedule. Got to play Skyline this week, obviously, but I think that they were hungry from the get-go after not having last year end like they wanted it to. But yeah, just checked. Sunnyside is a 4A team. They play in the West Valley, Eastmont, Moses Lake League, and I mean, anytime you're going to go up 2 classifications and play a school that's pretty much in your area, that's twice the size of you, and pull out the win, especially in overtime, that's a gutsy win to start the year.
Yeah, big time win. Good win to start the year for them. I think that they have a good solid defense, I think, and I think that they could cause a lot of trouble that way. Offensively, it'll be interesting to see, how they really get going as the year goes and continues.
Yeah, I mean, they were a team that made its way into the top 10 of just about every ranking that was available, including Matt Evans' computer rankings, Tyson, your rankings last year, AP rankings. I mean, Prosser, I think, was as high as 6th or 5th at one point, and then a couple losses in that league when you have just a short number of how many teams are going to get into the postseason. You can't take any team lightly, and you have to win every game on your schedule, essentially, especially when it comes to league. But a good sign for them to get a win against a team 2 classifications higher. So Prosser off to a good start. Next game, guys, was super close. Enumclaw against Peninsula. And just like last year, that game last year was a 2-point game in favor of Enumclaw. They won that one on the road last year. And this one, they win at home 20-13. And guys, both teams got off to a slow start offensively. It was the defenses really through the first 3 quarters that, was the story of this ball game. And then they started trading touchdowns towards the end. Your boy, Tyson, Seamus, getting it done. 2 touchdowns late in the ball game to help seal the win. Peninsula, a good team still. Enumclaw is a good team as well. I don't think that the score is reflective of Enumclaw not being worthy of the number 1 slot or the number 2 slot in 2A, which we'll talk about rankings here in a little bit. But Peninsula is still a good team, and I still think that they're going to be a contender in their league, the South Sound League for 3A with Yelm and the likes of Timberline and Gig Harbor. What were your thoughts on that game at all?
That was a playoff game, basically. I mean, 2013 offense is sputtering early. Enumclaw's got a good quarterback, but they relied on the ground game. And imagine Tui broke plenty of tackles in that one to lead them to the win.
It's such a good offensive line, too.
Oh, yeah. They're just a physical bunch. 2A about as physical a bunch as you'll find, I think, especially this year.
Well, didn't get a chance to really watch any of that one, but I was following it on the Twitter thread during the broadcast the whole time. And, back and forth defense style game. I think Enumclaw's defense is going to be very tough to deal with for the teams in 2A, especially in their league. Not a whole lot of firepower, it looks like, out of that league, but there were some games that, kind of caught my attention there. Washington lost their first game by 15 points, playoff team from last year. Ording was a team that really struggled last year, but they were in the playoffs the year prior, and they ended up getting a 14-point win. But good win for Enumclaw. I still want to see him play White River in the Battle of the Hornets that wear the exact same colors. So they should have a loser leaves town steel cage match in that one. But next game, WF West and Ridgefields. Tyson, tell us why that you loved Ridgefield, and I'll tell you why I was so wrong afterwards.
You look across. I mean, a lot of teams you'll find. This is no slight to anybody, but a lot of teams you'll find maybe 3 or 4 good athletes on the team, and what I mean by that is skill position guys that like to run and hit. And I found, across the board for Ridgefield, I would say there was about 7 or 8 kids on that team that really perked my eyes up. And when you've got that many kids that grab your attention at a 2A school that are probably playing 2 ways, I was like, this is a deeper team than I think they even were last year, because they're pretty young. They were led by Wyatt Bartroff last year. Obviously, what was the other kid's name? Isaiah Cowley, yeah, another great player that they lost. But I saw plenty of athletes across the board. There's some really deep teams in 2A, but as I start digging into it further, they're up there with most of them from what I could see on film. So I think WF West is a team that is kind of top heavy, and this year in comparison to maybe the last few. And I just thought, if they can pretty much contain Brumfield, that's going to be the game plan, I think, for most anybody that plays WF West this year overall. And so when you have that deep of a roster, your chances definitely go up when you got to play a guy like that.
Yeah. Ridgefield definitely has had its fair share of athletes developed within the program. They are a school that's got a community that's growing, a lot of houses being built, a lot of developments and stuff. So a lot of families are moving in there, but they also lost a really good player, Landon Kelsey, who ends up going to Central Catholic, who had a pretty good day against Bellevue this last weekend as well. So he's a guy that's getting looks from Oregon State, Fresno State, some other places around here. So, losing guys like that and replacing them, hasn't really been something that Ridgefield has had to, endure yet. But it's one of those schools that we talked about culture shift a little while back, like with Anacortes, for instance, with Highline, for instance, when you've got, low turnout of kids, maybe you've got 35, 40 guys coming out on your roster. And then 3 years later, you've got 70, 75, maybe 80 guys. And Ridgefield is one of those communities that's growing. It wouldn't shock me if they end up in a 3A classification next year. But having Brandon Malella take some snaps at quarterback and pick up a rushing touchdown as a go-ahead touchdown late in the game. You know, he's a guy that shared snaps with quarterback Logan DeBeaumont a couple years ago, and ultimately those two went back and forth between who was going to win the job or not. But, you know, that's a huge win for them to go on the road against WF West, a team that won the EVCO last year, and get that win. They take on Mountain View this week, another team that they lost to last year. Already very, very, very promising start to the season for Scott Rice's team down there in Ridgefield. And for WF West, I mean, it doesn't get any easier after having a home game against Ridgefield. You got to play on the road against Linden. So time to, you know, strap up the helmet once again, and it's going to be tough. Devin, any thoughts on that game at all?
No, not really. I didn't see too much of it, but I was surprised Tyson did call that one a couple days after, though.
Hey, it counts. It coununts.
I think that was Friday about 3 p.m.
Oh yeah, no, it was,
Yeah.
it was up to kickoff.
Yeah.
By the way, anybody watching wants to type in comments, questions, you know, games that we should be talking about, feel free to type them into the comment section. We'd love to get your feedback. Next game, as I turn over the page, Eastmont 28, Meade 19. Eastmont gets a win in a game against a team that made the playoffs last season. And, you know, Tyson, you were kind of apprehensive about Meade, you know, going into the pick'ems last week, and Eastmont had some guys that you liked on film, and, you know, looks like those guys did enough to get a week 1 victory. What were your thoughts on that game?
I mentioned senior leadership. They've got a 4-year starter at quarterback and running back. And Meade had a lot of, I'd say, sophomores and juniors of last year. So they were, you know, they've stepped up, but they lost a lot of seniors that were really important to their team. And so I just figured in a game that was so tight, it was 14-13 last year, you know, at Eastmont losing, but Meade losing so much talent. I was like, this senior leadership's got to win out on this one this year. And I don't know if it happened, but I had a little tip that they were going to go for the goal, the end zone on the first play. I don't know if that ended up happening or not, but yeah, Eastmont, you know, when you got a 4-year starter at quarterback and running back, that's the kind of stuff you need, and it gets a young team like Meade.
Devin, anything on that game at all?
No thoughts.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. Tyson, you are the foremost authority on Eastmont and Meade.
Yeah.
I know I sure as hell is not. So this next game I picked wrong on. It was Lakeside against Linden Christian. Lakeside 9 Mile Falls here, gentlemen. I mean, 14-8 against a really, really good team. I didn't get a chance to watch the game, so I'm really not sure what the story of the game was, but I can tell you the story of the game for everybody who was just scrolling around the box scores is that, damn, Lakeside is for real, and Linden Christian, you know, they have the toughest schedule in 1A probably, so it's not going to get any easier for them. Or are your thoughts at all on LC and Lakeside? Devin, I feel like I should go to you first here for this one.
Yeah, I think I predicted that one wrong as well. I think I went with Linden Christian, of course, but I also did not see the game, but my guess would be that, you know, Linden Christian is just trying to find, you know, that new groove, you know, offensively. Losing a guy like Kate Eldridge is a big deal, you know, so having to replace that and work around that, you know, I know it's hard. Another guy they lost was Tyler Sitma. He's a good receiver they had in the slot who just made a big difference, you know, and it'll be interesting to see if they find their footing. But like you mentioned, with the hardest schedule in 1A, it's going to be hard. And with the game coming up this week that we'll talk about later, I don't know, they could be starting 0-2.
Yeah. Well, I was the one who picked Lakeside. That's 3 in a row. It's obviously not going to continue on this streak where I picked different than you guys, and it worked out. But I kind of mentioned how, you know, Linden Christian went on the road last year against Royal and won a game similar fashion to this one. But this was a 2+ hour longer bus ride, and it was on a Friday. And just a different atmosphere when you gotta go to school. Well, maybe I don't know the exact details of how Lyndon traveled, but considering it was the second day of school, I assume that they did have to go first thing and then pretty much go get on the bus right away. But Lakeside's they're going to be a more physical team this year. I'd say Hunsaker was more of the mold of a traditional quarterback last year, great athlete, but Calvin Mickelson's, 215, maybe 220 pounds and put together, and they picked up some offensive linemen to help anchor their, trenches. And yeah, that was my reasoning behind it. And frankly, I know that they're a really hungry program, having had really good seasons the last 2 years and come up short. It's like, you talk to Cole, he'll tell you, I think they could win it all this year. And I mean, I believed him because he's one of the best leaders and most probably down to earth kids that we've ever spoke with. So it resonated with me.
Yeah, I saw Cole on Twitter was talking up his team this year, and I think the rebuttal that was like, shouldn't you be focused on like college football? Like, quit living in the high school days.
What I will say, he's the type of guy who's focused on that too. I think he's always locked in.
He just loves his guys. I talked to him about his experiments, just a sidebar, but he's down there at Fresno City College, and he said it's just like Last Chance U. Like he said every practice he's ever practiced in was more pressure than any game he ever played in high school, and it's a pretty crazy experience, but it sounds like he's got himself down there as the number 2 quarterback behind a kid that played at Fresno State and San Jose State. So more power to him, especially taking that road with no scholarship, kind of just taking a chance on himself. And it's something that a lot of kids tend to do.
So next, gentlemen, I've got Woodland against Kalama, and I went with Woodland in this one, and they ended up winning it 44-30. This one was obviously high scoring, for good reason. There's some good athletes on both sides of the ball in that one. On the losing side of things, Aiden Brown had himself a day. We'll go over the numbers when we do our athlete spotlights and, go over our top scores and top performances. But yeah, he had himself a big day for Kalama. Woodland just had a little bit more overall on the ground and were able to grind out a big win in a rivalry game. 44 points is a good total for the Beavers. Giving up 30 to a 2B school, I'm not saying that that's something that they should be concerned about going forward, because we did talk up Kalama a lot last week. They are going to be one of those teams in 2B that should be taken very seriously, especially alongside the Napavines and the Okanogans of the world. But I felt that Woodland probably gave up more points than they probably would have preferred in this game, but still grinding out a victory in a rivalry game is a big deal. Did you guys have any thoughts on that one at all?
No, not particularly. Thought maybe it'd be a little lower scoring, but I obviously had Kalama in that one. I think didn't you have Kalama also, or was I alone?
That I am not 100% sure on.
I've got it. Let's see. Nick, where's the game? No, you get. I was the only loser, so the pendulum's swinging back the other way.
Uh-oh. All right, let's move on. Royal and Toppenish, and Royal picks up a win, 35-7. After we did the picks for the games, I kind of felt like that maybe we should have left that one off, because even though it was like a top 10 ranked game on paper, it just seemed like that, anytime that you got Royal on the board, 95% of the time they're going to win. And it's no different this year. Not sure, again, what the indictments are. We got a long way to go here, but we all know that Royal is good. And we still have some question marks with Toppenish about where they're going from here. But overall, for the 3-time defending champs, Royal looks pretty good.
Same exact score differential as last year. There's 34-6 last year, and Toppenish had Josh Perez. So I don't know if that means Royal's that much better this year than they were last. I don't know what it means, but yeah, I expected a differential pretty similar to that.
Anything else on that game, Devin? Did you want to contribute to? Just kind of no shocks for me in that game. I mean, you know, we all went with Royal for a reason in that one, and they're going to be a very difficult team to beat anywhere they play. So, and a home game against Toppenish seemed like a pretty easy win on paper there, but Toppenish is going to take on Washougal this week. I'm interested to see how that game goes. This is an opportunity for them to bounce back and, kind of get everyone's attention back towards them in a good light, so to speak. The next game, Montesano and Black Hills. Yeah, blowout city. Montesano wins this one 44-7. I tried telling you guys last week that Montesano was 8-2 in their last 10 against higher classification opponents, now 9-2 in their last 11. They got a very, very, very good team. Tyson, you like where they're at in the EVCO 1A, and they're the highest ranked team that you've got out of the EVCO 1A for a lot of good reasons. And Black Hills has some skill position guys still that came back to play, but they're still filling some holes as well. That was a huge win for Montesano.
That was another one that I was alone on being wrong. You guys both had Montesano, but I thought it'd be a lot closer game because I thought on paper Black Hills would, especially being a little bit bigger school, would, be a stiffer competition in that game. But Monty, impressive opening week 1 win, big time.
Devin, any thoughts on that?
Nothing else to add.
Couple more games, Chelan and Brewster. Chelan 56, Brewster 27. That's a lot of points. That's impressive. Chelan putting up 56. Didn't get any stats from that game. Tried to find some on something intelligent to talk about. Did you gentlemen have anything intelligent to talk about on that one?
I didn't see any stats either, but knowing how Chelan is set up, I'd imagine a lot of that was due to the legs of Lance Gogol. It's kind of a stout, 5'10", 200-pound high school running back. Doesn't go down easy.
All right. Toledo, Raymond, South Bend. Toledo gets a big win, 42-35. Tyson, you still got Raymond, South Bend in the top 10 at number 8 for this next week's rankings. That's a tough game there at Toledo, a team that made the playoffs last year and went to the quarterfinals. And, I think that both teams are still pretty promising in terms of having a chance to get right back to that spot. But that was a pretty close game. Did you guys get anything on that one at all you want to talk about?
No, 42-35. That's a shootout. That's why I have Raymond South Bend in the top 10 still. Is I think Toledo will probably be a top 10 team all year. But, another one that 3 in a row totally has swung back the other way. You guys both had Toledo, and I had Raymond South Bend.
Yeah, long live the Riverhawks.
For sure.
Chris Smith says Toledo is young but talented. That's good. I'll see what else finished up with that real quick. Seniority is on the offensive line, defensive line. Well, there you go.
Gotta love that.
That'll take you to a lot of places, having the ability to win in the trenches.
Definitely.
2 more games, guys, and then we can round table some other games that weren't on the list. So Nooksack Valley 35, Mountain View 21. This one probably made Devin smile ear to ear. Nooksack goes down and I won't say dominates, but they ran the ball very effectively, just about as dominating of a victory as you can have by 14 points and allowing 21 points in the history of football for sure. But Colton Lentz and Joey Brown, obviously big reason why. And, last year it was a really, really, really close game. Mountain View graduated a lot of players, and they're also breaking in a new head coach. So I think Nooksack did what you guys thought they would do. I chose Mountain View on that one just from the standpoint that's a long, long, long trip, kind of like what Tyson was saying earlier with Lakeside and Linden Christian, but didn't really matter to Nooksack Valley here in this one.
Yep,
they 404 rushing yards by Nooksack.
Yeah.
404. I just wanted to point that out. So shout out to the offensive line, Brady Ackerman, John
Big John Stramler,
yeah, Dalton Hickey, Duke Hala.
Just pronounce the vowels is what I heard.
pronounce the vowels.
Yeah.
And CN
Halapapi?
Coppinger. Halapapi, yeah.
Yeah.
Halapapi, and then CN Coppinger, the 5 of them. Shout out those guys.
Yeah. That's a physical group.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good sign for Nooksack Valley to, go down and clean out a 3A opponent. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what we thought. I mean, I think all 3 of us had Colton Lentz as our 1A player of the year, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Most likely too.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously a good start for us on that front. We'll get to his numbers here in a little bit when we do some athlete spotlights. But anything else to wrap up that game before we get to our game of the week, which turned out to actually not really be that much of a game?
I was just going to say, let's call Colton Lentz the 1A Braden Platt.
Okay. Before we get to the last game, yeah, for those who don't know, Braden Platt, Yelm linebacker, 4-star, has recruited to the University of Oregon.
It's a tough pill to swallow.
Oregon.
Darn it. Anyways, but we probably got a lot of Oregon.
He's going to go there, and he's going to go be a monster.
He is.
And I cannot wait to see him in the NFL one day.
Yeah, no, yeah. He is going to be a monster. Yeah, he's going to be a problem for a long time. But
for sure.
Congratulations to Braden Platt. That's awesome. Go get yourself a good education and, go do really well on the football field. I saw that Jaden Lemar had some carries and a touchdown in the win over Portland State. He better have. It seemed like everybody on the Ducks roster got a touchdown that game. So, but that was cool to see some of the top guys from the state of Washington. I'd like to see him play at the University of Washington, but hey, I'm happy for where they go. I mean, I'm not good enough to play, so be happy for them where they're good enough to go and play. So anyway, last game. It was our game of the week last week, Rainier Beach and Highline. And all I can say is, Devin, you are absolutely spot on with this pick. You had Highline. Tyson and I, we talked to the coaches. We got them off the air when we made our picks because we were too afraid to tell Coach Coop that we were going with Rainier Beach in this one. And boy, were we dead ass wrong. We couldn't have been more wrong. 42-0. I mean, who saw that coming? 42 zip? You saw that coming?
I think it was going to be a big win because the biggest question mark is the Rainier Beach offense, in my opinion. Who's throwing the ball?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about that. Yeah, I mean, that was one of the questions that we had for Coach Sampson last week is, who do you see taking signals? And he said, it's going to be a young guy. He's going to get his first start and, he's going to have wide eyes. And, 42-0 though. I mean, against a team from the Metro League that has got playoff wins, quite a few of them in recent history. We talked about it, Tyson, last week because Devin, obviously you weren't around with us, but still you watched. I mean, this was a culture-changing win for Highline. This is that win where, obviously you can't go recruit, right? But you can build your program to the guys who are available in your area to come turn out and play, and to show what it can turn you into, and you can beat a team like Rainier Beach 42-0.
Yeah, it was shocking, honestly. I wanted to go back and watch that game because I think it was on NFHS, and I probably still will this week, but I would assume it was what Sampson said could potentially happen, basically happened. And, Highline's, especially as a quarterback, I know Marquand McCraney had a pick in that game. He's probably the highest recruited 2A player in the state, I think, off the top of my head. And so being a freshman, what is he, 14, maybe 15 years old, starting for Rainier Beach, I imagine, I think Highline started fast. And once a team has momentum like that and you're playing against basically an unseasoned leader at that point. And, it's a game that I'm sure in 2-3 years you'll look back and it'll really benefit that kid that started for Rainier Beach because that's a tough pill to swallow in your first loss. But then again, that's no disrespect to Highline because, like I said, last week. They've got enough talent to beat pretty much any team in any classification. It's just a matter of putting it all together. And they look ready to go.
Another tough opponent this week. Devin, any thoughts on that game at all?
No more thoughts to add other than, I think Highline's a real deal. They're a team to watch for. Ronan is top QB in 2A, and they got playmakers all around him. And Coach Coop is the perfect guy to lead them.
Yeah, the defense played phenomenal for him. I mean, pitching a shutout. They're going to take on some teams in 2A that have some firepower for sure. There's plenty of teams that have good quarterbacks, good wide receiver combinations, can run the football as well. So, they still got their work cut out for them, but man, program-changing win, in my opinion, for Highline. Being able to schedule that game and get that result like that, that's big time for them. And Kennedy Catholic next week, a team that took it to them last year. Man, we'll get to game picks later. We'll just say that. So that's the 20 that we ended up talking about last week and picking on the air. And let's open it up to you guys and me here. We'll talk about a couple other games real quick that we didn't really have on our pick'ems, but we should mention. Who wants to start? Me? Tyson?
Yeah, go for it. I got to get my little tab open here.
All right, so I'll go first. First, I'll say this. Skyview beating Jesuit 28-0. We didn't talk about it a lot last week because hard to talk about a team in Jesuit that we don't get a chance to see very often. They're a very good team in terms of what they've done the last couple of seasons, obviously, and they beat Skyview in a close game the year before. But, man, Skyview, they looked really, really good. I watched some of the film. Man, Kennedy was a dual threat in the game, showed off his speed. Him at the quarterback position, Devin, reminded me a little bit of Leighton Smithson and his dual threat ability, being able to run the quarterback read zone and, get up the middle and kind of use his athleticism there. But the defense pitching a shutout in that game, huge. That was one of the games I felt really deserved some credit, talking about Skyview, and Tyson's rankings kind of shows that a little bit too, because they moved up the board there. Also in 4A, Greater St. Helens League play, Battlegrounds really took it to Mark Morris in the game that I called 43-0. And I probably should have seen that coming, just with the fact that, Battleground was returning 22 seniors. But, guys, they have a quarterback that's a sophomore. His name's Ethan Adams, and it was his first start ever. And he ran that offense brilliantly. A lot of misdirection, a lot of good play action fakes, the ability to run the ball if he needed to. He was able to throw on the run against his body and deliver plenty of balls on target. And, he's a kid that you can look for maybe over the next couple of years, and Battleground's much improved. That league down there, other than that game that Union had against O'Day this last weekend, Camas, Skyview, Battlegrounds, they're going to be three very tough teams battling it out in the Greater St. Helens League 4A. Finally, got to give a big shout out to my boys at the RA Long Lumberjacks. They went to Castle Rock and ended a 15-game losing streak, taking down Castle Rock 19-14. Tremaine Jenkins, a junior, getting his first start at quarterback. He's been an all-league defender and a wide receiver last year who caught about 10 touchdowns, moving to quarterback position. Ends up throwing 3 touchdowns. He did have a couple of interceptions, and, he's the type of kid that wants to learn from those mistakes and do better the next time he goes out. But big days also for some wide receivers there. Cohen William Dyke had a few catches and a touchdown, showed off some track star speed. And then he also had a interception and a pass deflected. That proved to be the game-winning pass deflection. Abel Million had a good game at wide receiver, catching a touchdown. Gabe Huntley, a kid that's been, in the program, catching a touchdown. So R.A. Long, getting off the schneid, so to speak. That's awesome to see. Those are just a couple of games that I noticed off the top of my head that I wanted to talk about real quick.
Yeah, I'll just drop some scores real quick. teams that didn't make it into my top 10, but I'm certainly watching because they have my interest. Obviously, Kennedy Catholic losing by 3 to that Colorado school, Regis Jesuit. That was going on the road. That was a pretty impressive loss. Woodinville going, I think, down to Hawaii and beating a team by the name of Waialua. Usually those Hawaiian schools, especially the bigger ones, are pretty dang good. And so Woodinville getting off to a good start. And then shout out to my dad's alma mater, Newport of Bellevue. Nathan Hale's predominantly not really known for much besides when Michael Porter went there, but Newport taking it to him 51-7. I thought that was a great way for them to start the year, and they're obviously in an area where they can field a competitive team. It's been a while, but and then Arlington beating Kamiak 46-8. Knew Arlington was going to be pretty good, but I didn't really foreshadow them putting up that kind of points. I don't think they did the whole year last year. And then, well, Ording, you mentioned it earlier a little bit. Ording beating 5-28-14 was pretty impressive. I didn't really foresee that being a 2-score game. Down into the 1A, Colville beating Tenino 34-14. That one definitely shocked me. Tenino was a playoff team last year, and Colville they just about, I think, well, they might have got in no, they didn't get in the first round. They were just there. But that was, 20-point win in that game. And Sultan putting up 48 points. I know, Nick, you mentioned it was Evergreen, who is a team that struggled a little bit over the last few years, but still 48 points when you're playing up a classification like that was pretty impressive. And then a team that made its debut on my rankings this week, Friday Harbor beating South Woodby 35-20. South Woodby was a pretty good team last year, and Friday Harbor has a 6'3", 240-pound running back. So you don't that once I saw them get a win like that, I was like, who knows? This could be a year that they make a decent run.
Do you have any games at all from last week that I can think of one if you don't name it, but I'll give you a chance to name it.
Yeah, I only got a couple that Tyson didn't touch on that I kind of want to chat about. Anacortes Oak Harbor, Anacortes with only the 21-7 win, and really the offense seemed very stagnant. It might just be a week 1 sort of thing, but you never know. I'm pretty sure we heard 3-4 fumbles.
Yeah, and can I interject? That was the worst officiating crew I think I've ever seen, not from a penalty standpoint, but sometimes it took – I watched the whole game over on Saturday, and it took – I was skipping 10 seconds at a time. There was a few times it took them 6 minutes to spot the ball. It was that I assume maybe that's why they didn't have much of a rhythm offensively.
Yeah.
But not trying to take over your games, but yeah, it had to be stated. Basically, it was the worst officiating crew ever.
Yeah, no, that's always a big deal when something like that happens. So I totally get that. Another one, like we mentioned earlier, a little bit, Seaholm and Mount Baker. Seaholm with the big 35-12 win over Baker. Baker with the new starting quarterback and new running back and just knew everything, so it's hard for them, just readjusting and restarting, with, Nolan Wright for Seaholm coming back, Andre Watson coming back, and they looked really good. Nolan had over 100 yards rushing as well, 200 plus yards passing. I think Coach Coop said last week, Seaholm is definitely a team to watch. I thought maybe that they were a little too young and didn't have a solid running back, but they looked good last week. So we'll see next week. I think they play Thursday against Blaine. I don't think we'll be predicting it, but I will be at that game watching Seaholm. So that's another thing. And then one more game, Archbishop Murphy, Lakes, Washington. Archbishop Murphy getting that win. I think Jovan Shocker, I think that's his name, the quarterback. It was really good. Really good. He's got a strong arm, big stature. I think he's going to lead them to some big wins this year, and I think that they could make some noise. It could be a sneaky team to watch.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the Seaholm Mount Baker game because, as much as Mount Baker did lose coming into this season, they still were, in the state championship game in 1A last year. They did get there as a 10 seed, but, you usually don't get to that spot in a season by accident. So, I mean, that's still a really good win for Seaholm there to beat them handedly. And, you know, like you mentioned with Coach Coop last week talking about Seaholm, you know, that's a team that needs to get some respect put on their name in a hurry. And I think that teams are going to be watching some film from that game and, you know, being a little bit nervous. Deer Park had a pretty good showing against East Valley Spokane, 35-7. That was one that kind of caught my eye, and I would make a case for Deer Park to make an appearance in a top 10 ranking situation, possibly somewhere. I think that they're a team that might be very difficult for everybody this year. So those are the games I got. Anything else to add, gentlemen? And then we can talk about some athlete performances from last week.
Ready to roll.
All right. Well, who wants to start?
Oh, man.
I got a list.
Yeah, I do too. I got about 16 kids, but I don't want to rattle them all off at one time. How about we just do 2 at a time?
Let's do it.
So we don't overlap each other.
All right. Well, I got to get my pen out then because I might have to cross some off because I guarantee that we're probably all going to have at least a few on there. So,
Sure thing.
All right, athletes. We took a look at all your numbers and your stats, and we even put together some highlights as well. And we're going to have a young man join us here who's on this list in just a little bit. So, Devin, if you want to get him over here, we'll have him waiting in the live stream lobby, and we'll introduce him in just a little while. So, first, I'm going to start in 4A. And if we want to start in 4A, we'll just keep that going until we're done with 4A names here. So first one I got, you'll probably have to cross off your list. Colton Matson of Lake Stevens, the quarterback, goes 26 for 35, 331 yards, and 6 tutties against Garfield. Those are some eye-opening stats, guys. The next one that I had for 4A was Malachi Durant of Graham Kapowson, 3 catches for 92 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a kickoff return for touchdown that went 90 yards in a win over Rogers. So those are my first 2 for 4A.
I'll cover the game that I was at with 2 names. I've got 3, but I'll get the other one later. Both these kids athletes out of Moses Lake, both seniors. One's Kyson Thomas. He had a touchdown receiving. Took a punt return to the house. First, mind you, first time he Freda punted, went to the house, and then the first time that, well, I guess it was the opening kickoff, he also took that back to the house. So 3 overall touchdowns, made a lot of good tackles, was hitting people, and then his best friend Joel Middleton. I don't have the official stat line just yet. Coach Jay's he's supposed to email it to me tonight. But I would say Joel had 5+ catches with 100+ yards and 3 touchdowns receiving. So those kids were clear standouts in that game.
Devin, 4A, couple guys.
So I didn't organize mine in that way, if that makes sense. I don't have them by class. I just have a list of guys. So
no worries.
I'll let you go again because I don't want to go mess up the classifications and things like that. So
gotcha. We got Aiden Watkins here now in the live stream chat or in our lobby there. So you want to message him and just tell him to hold on just a second there, and then we'll get him in here. But I can see him there. So yeah, some more 4A names from Battleground High School. Jacob Champagne. He is a running back / wide receiver / athlete. He had 3 total touchdowns in the win against Mark Morris. 2 of them on the ground and then 1 of them receiving. He also played defense spectacularly and absolutely leveled a kid on a swing pass out of the backfield that could have been a lot worse than what it was, but it was still not like great. But that was a great game for Jacob Champagne of Battlegrounds. And Rocco Koch of Curtis High School, 10 of 11 for 193 yards, 5 touchdowns, and then 128 yards rushing and a touchdown and a win over Olympia. Yeah, those numbers are pretty good.
Yeah, dual threat right there, menace. Two more quarterbacks for me. I mentioned his two teammates earlier, but sophomore quarterback Brady J. and Moses Lake. Again, don't have his official stats, but I would say this is a modest guess to assume he completed 70% of his passes, had 250 yards, and the one thing I do know is he had 6 touchdowns and no turnovers. Really his 4th career start, but those were later in the year last year, so first opening day start, I suppose. And then another quarterback transfer from Shorecrest to Bothell. Another kid that's a junior, Jalen Viars, who's over there in New York. He was 13 of 17 for 197 and 5 touchdowns with one of those on the ground. Looked like he played a flawless game.
The last guy that I had for 4A written down was Jake Kennedy of Skyview, the quarterback who had 121 yards passing and then a 57-yard rushing touchdown in the win over Jesuit. So that rounds out the 4A guys that I have down on my list. Did you have any remaining, or Tyson or Devin, for 4A, or should we move to 3A?
I'm wrapped up. If Devin has seen anymore, yeah, but I'm ready for 3A.
Cool, let's do it. I'll start off with the O'Day running back, Jason Brown Jr. Man, 9 carries, 155 yards rushing, and 2 touchdowns in the win over Union. Yeah, I like the term menace. That's a good word there, Tyson. I'm a big fan of the word menace because that's what Jason Brown Jr. was in that win over Union. And then another 3A that I had was Bodie Gardner of Mount Spokane, a wide receiver, 8 catches for 220 yards and 4 touchdowns in a win over University, getting the Al Bundy Award there.
Yeah, piggyback off of that, I had his quarterback on here, TJ Haberman, 16 of 25 for 383 and those 4 touchdowns and 220. So he had 153 yards to the rest of the team, but 220 and 4 of those touchdowns going to Bodie Gardner. Another guy that was on my list from the 3A class would be, shout out again, Newport or Bellevue, Julius Lapai. I think that's how you say his last name. 5 catches, 148 yards, 2 touchdowns on offense. Supposedly had 2 called back as well. And then defensively, 6 tackles, 2 for a loss, a pass breakup, and a forced fumble. Looked like he was snapping necks in that one. He was laying the wood.
Dev, any 3A guys at all?
I'm going to go back to 4A because I got one.
Okay.
Michael Grimmer, quarterback from Skyview. He went 15-18, 300 yards, 5 touchdowns.
Skyline?
Skyview.
I got
Grimmer's Skyline. They played Wenatchee.
Oh,
yeah,
my fault.
Yeah, no. You're on the right track though.
Yeah,
that's a heck of a performance.
So for 3A though,
it's still good. Yeah.
I got Jamal Guy Jr. He's a DB receiver from Chief South. They played Bellingham last week. He has 6 receptions for 121 yards, a touchdown, 4 tackles, and 2 passes broken up. Another 3A guy, Cannon Bumgarner from Stanwood, 9 tackles, 4 passes broken up, 77 yards on the ground rushing, and a touchdown.
I feel like I've heard that last name before, Bumgarner.
Yeah.
He looks just like his brother, too.
Now.
Where did he play at? Stanwood? Oh, yeah. And he's University of Washington? Okay.
Right. Yep.
The last 3A guy that I had before we move on and introduce our special guest tonight is from Auburn Mountain View, the quarterback Elijah Baird. Quarterback went 193 yards and 3 touchdowns. He also had 2 rushing touchdowns in the win over Kent Ridge. So that was a good performance there by Mr. Baird. You guys have anybody else there on the list?
Yeah, I had one more quarterback. He's a junior this year from Juanita, Dallas Soto, 19 of 27 for 278 and 2 touchdowns with 9 carries and 75 yards on the ground. Compared to some of these, maybe a little bit more modest of a stat line, but that's a name you're probably going to hear every single week.
All right.
Yeah, also shout out Dale Gibson Jr. from Timberline. He was all over the place on defense. He had 6 tackles, 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, 3 passes broken up as well.
Dang. Gave Peyton Stewart a hell of a game.
Yeah, I mean, if only he ran the ball and threw the ball and caught the ball too.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to move into the 2A class, and to start it off, we got a special guest who is on our list, and we're going to bring him in and introduce him right now. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are joined by Aberdeen athlete running back Aiden Watkins. Aiden, thanks for holding on and joining us here tonight. Appreciate you being with us.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, let's see if I can get a better there we go. We're gonna go 4 panels. We're gonna go around the horn style. You look tired, buddy. You've been up since about 7 in the morning today, and then probably had some football practice already.
Yeah, and then we had to run right after we had film, so I'm pretty tired.
After a 36-0 win, geez Louise. Hopefully
we
it
had,
was worth it.
11 penalties, 3 fumbles.
So what you're saying is that it could have been a lot better for you guys.
1,000,000%.
Well, again, Aiden Watkins joining us from Aberdeen High School, 110 yards rushing and 4 touchdowns. Another Al Bundy award here. Do you understand the Al Bundy reference? No? Okay. You'll have to look up the TV sitcom Married with Children, and you'll absolutely love it. So that's what you're doing.
My mom, she got the reference right away.
Good, yeah. You're scoring 4 touchdowns in a single game, young man. That's awesome. 36-0 win over Hoquiam. Other than the penalties and the turnover issues there, just talk about the game from an individual standpoint and from a team standpoint.
We just knew that we couldn't let our emotions get the best of us. You know, it's a rivalry game, 118 years. And through my past experience and the coaches' past experiences, even the coaches and the players, we all get way too excited and we let our emotions get the best of us, and then we get those penalties and those fumbles that happen. And that's what we were focusing on, is keep making sure we are mentally in the right spot to make plays and stuff.
And then, last year's team had some expectations going into the year, and it just kind of fell a little bit short of the expectations, from the commentary that I've gotten from people in the community and guys that played on the team last year. What would be the difference so far between last year's team and then this year's team? Is it a culture shift, or just getting a fresh group of guys in there that just don't know any better?
I think last year, one of the main reasons we couldn't produce as well as everyone, including us as a team, thought we should have, was we had a lot of injuries, which, that really shuts you down. It's like not much you can do about it. I think we had like 5 people tear their ACL last year, which is just horrible. And then this year we're focusing a lot on having a winning culture, is the way my coach wants to put it. And all that, we've just been focusing on that the entire summer, the past 3 months.
Well, Aberdeen's not too far removed from the postseason 2 years ago, played in the playoffs against Ridgefield. So it's a team that is proud and has a long-standing tradition of being competitive. It's a very tough league that you guys play in with Tumwater, WF West, Black Hills, amongst others, Shelton. What are some things that you guys are looking forward to this year in terms of the opponents that you're going to play in your schedule?
A lot of home games. I think we play WF West, Tumwater, Shelton, Rochester, all at home. I think we only have to travel for Black Hills and Centralia. So, and we haven't lost a home game since I was a freshman. So I think we're really looking forward to playing those teams on our turf this year.
Very good. Devin, Tyson, you guys want to jump in with some questions for Mr. Watkins?
I got one for you, Aiden. Obviously, you've played in Aberdeen's had a pretty deep backfield the last couple of years, and you lost Trey Anderson and Jeremy Sawyer, this last year. Just anything you picked up from them, kind of being a class behind them over the last few years that I assume makes you the leader of that room this year at Aberdeen?
Yeah, they were both great leaders, great players, and I think both of them really took me under their wing last year, as I was like the third option on the offense, and I was just trying to make way and just stay out of their way, because obviously they have way more experience than me. And I really do think I learned a lot on how to lead a team and how to pick people up the right way and let the coaches do the yelling, basically.
Yeah, no, obviously scoring 4 touchdowns in a game, you're off to a good start, helping your team, leading them to victory. It's how did you guys score the other touchdown?
Wait, sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, I said you obviously scored 4, but you guys had 36. How'd that other score happen?
I think it was our junior running back, Marcus Hale. The reason I say maybe is because we had like 3 or 4 touchdowns get called back. So I don't know.
Part of
I'm
those
pretty sure it
11
was Marcus Hale.
Part of those 11 penalties, I assume you guys
Yeah.
are referring to.
Yeah, that's probably the reason why they were running right there. Devin, what do you got? Anything there for Mr. Watkins?
Yeah, so thanks for coming on as well, Aiden. You guys just talked about like the leadership aspect and you taking that step. A couple weeks ago, I reached out to you about who was going to be the starting quarterback, and I asked who or some other guys to watch on your team. I just kind of wanted you to talk now about some of those guys who we should keep an eye on for the rest of the year going forward. I know you just mentioned Marcus Hale, who you also told me about a couple weeks ago. Who else is some other guys?
Well, I haven't seen anything about it, but Patrick Walsh with 9 tackles, 3 TFLs at strong safety, and he was just lighting people up the entire night. I mean, I didn't expect it. I don't think anyone on the staff expected it. It was so bad. He got yelled at because he was hitting people too hard at film, like with leading with his head and stuff. It was bad.
Whoa.
Hey,
Yeah.
every team needs an enforcer, I suppose.
Yeah.
Plus,
Yeah.
Patrick Walsh sounds almost like Patrick Willis. It makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And on top of that, he's also amazing, amazing wide receiver. He's fast. He runs track, and he plays basketball. So he's got a really good high point for the ball. And I think he's really going to surprise some people this year.
All right. I had another question here before we let you get off and go to bed and get some well-deserved shut-eye. In terms of like your individual goals beyond this season for playing football at the high school level, maybe heading down the road into college, what's your outlook for yourself personally? Where do you see yourself going, if anywhere, when it comes to playing football potentially at the next level? Or is it more of just like a one day at a time focus for you and your plan?
I think right now it's a one-day plan. No school has really jumped the fence on me yet, but I'd love to go to Eastern. I loved everything about them, to their field, the way they run their practice, the energy they have. Yeah, and when I went on a visit there this summer, it was awesome, and I really hope that's where I end up. But obviously, I want to just end up playing college football. That's the dream. So anywhere.
Well, you're a very well-spoken young man. What do your grades look like, if you wanted to just get that out there and put that information out for other coaches that might be a chance to see you or reach out to you? What kind of
I have around a 3.0 right now, just right there, and I have a really easy schedule this semester, so it should go up like a lot this semester, but around a 3 point, maybe a little higher.
Okay. Well, Aiden, unless the guys got something else on the top of their head that they want to ask you, I'll just say thank you so much for watching and be a part of the show. We'd love to maybe check in with you guys later on down the road to see if you guys got an opportunity to pull off some of those big wins against some of those big teams that you talked about playing at home later on. And you guys got another game coming up this week. Who you guys got on the schedule?
Montesano.
That's going to be a big one. I think we actually have that written down as a game that we're going to pick. So I don't know if you have enough energy to stay awake and listen to us make those picks later on. But we do really appreciate you taking time to come on, and thanks for being patient, waiting for the lobby for a good time for you to transition on in. But again, Aiden Watkins of Aberdeen High School, 110 yards rushing, 4 touchdowns, and a win against Hoquiam. He was also the Spivey Player of the Week in the area up there. Congratulations. Tyson, Devin, say something nice to Aiden.
Hey, thanks, Aiden, for dropping by. And, yeah, good luck with Montesano this week. And I assume we're going to be talking about you guys pretty much the rest of the year when it comes to good matchups, because it's going to be a good schedule that, you guys make a good run. I hope you do, for that matter. Always a fan of anybody that has time for us and vice versa, and especially when you're well-spoken like yourself.
Thank you. I appreciate it a lot. I really appreciate you guys letting me come on. This was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Tell all your friends.
I
They can-
will.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Aiden.
You guys can rewatch it at any time on our YouTube channel that we're broadcasting on right now, or Facebook, however you've been watching it to this point. But yeah, thanks again, buddy. Go get
One
them.
thing I will say, hey,
never
you watch out for those state troopers, okay?
Oh,
Yeah, sorry, Mom.
Yeah, sorry, Mom.
just dropped him like that, man. Remember how Tyson got bus rolled last week during the Coach Cooper rankings thing? Well, the same thing just happened to poor Aiden right there. It's like- all right, buddy. Thanks so much.
guys.
Yep. All right.
All right. Have a good night, guys.
You too,
Thanks.
Aiden.
All right. That is Aiden Watkins, guys. Devin, all the credit in the world, man. That's our boy right there on the right side of the screen there. Devin Record doing a good job and stay in touch with these athletes. Again, Devin works extremely hard trying to get in touch with these guys and help them get their name out there. Same could be said for Tyson. Tyson's got a couple guys that he's got lined up for the rest of the season here too. We're going to try to get some guys from that whole Moses Lake connection on the show when they have some time to come on. But yeah, I mean, this is what we want. Athletes, please feel free to reach out to myself, Devin, or Tyson. Those two guys are directly working for you, the athletes, to get your film out there, to get information about you and write good things about you. I'm just here to bring it all together and broker it to happen. And if you guys want to watch some live streams while you're at it, go ahead and do it. But yeah, please continue to reach out to those two guys if you're interested in coming on and talking about yourself, talking about your team. Hopefully more talking about your team than yourself, but we'll definitely accept individual praise. What do you guys think about Mr. Watkins there?
Man, Aiden's awesome. I'm so glad that he came on, and I'm surprised no colleges have contacted him at all. I thought maybe it'd be in, a little bit, some.
Well, taking a
Have to help
visit
him
to
with that.
Eastern is good,
Yeah, I wonder if it was official or unofficial. I should have asked, but it does make a difference.
He's got a chance to definitely make a name for himself looking at this schedule ahead. I mean, Montesano, Prosser, Black Hills, Tumwater, WF West, all schools that have, put plenty of kids into the next level. So, yeah.
like Kellen Moore, Cooper Cup.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll
Well,
bet.
Cooper was for Davis, but shoot.
Oh.
I mean, Tumwater just last year, you had Matheny, or you got Gavin Fugate now at WSU just recently. So, yeah, he keeps running for 100 yards and 4 touchdowns. Someone will come calling for sure.
Also, it gives him contact with some coaches too.
I feel so old though now after he doesn't get the Al Bundy reference, man. It's like a generational gap. I'm so glad Mom was there.
Dude, I don't even get it. That's how old you are.
Oh, stop.
I'd never heard of it till you. I was thinking Ted Bundy when you brought it up last year.
No,
I was like, did
Al
he play
Bundy.
football?
No, Ted Bundy. No. Married with children, bro.
Never seen it in my life. I don't.
Oh, bro, do yourself a favor. All right, let's do ourselves another favor, and we'll continue on the athletes, and then we'll get to some rankings and some games. We're still in 2A, guys. I'm going to go with Cohen William Dyke, Kavari Long. 3 catches, 114 yards, and a touchdown, an interception, and winning pass deflection to help secure the victory, 19-14. I mentioned it a little bit earlier. I'm gonna steal this one. Actually, I have to go back to 3A. I wrote 2A next to this name for some reason because it happened against a 2A. Talent Bungard of Ferndale. The fullback ends up going 30 carries, 142 yards, a touchdown catch, and a touchdown reception. He was the offense. 30 carries, though, against Linden, guys. Wow. That is a Herculean effort.
I will also add he's like 6'3", 215. He's a big guy. He's gonna do a lot of damage, I think.
Good for shouldering that load out of that wing tee.
Exactly.
Another 2A guy that I have is from Woodland High School, Elijah Anderson. 153 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns, and a win against Kalama. All right. Anybody got some 2A guys? I got more, but I'll let you guys go.
I have 3, but I'll do the 2 for this round. Starting off with a running back from Ellensburg, Colton Magruder. Good track guy. 16 carries, 175 yards, and 2 touchdowns. They did lose to Zilla, but great individual performance. And then NWC 2A offensive MVP, we talked about their stagnant offense a little this last week, but overall, all bias aside, being my alma mater, etc., Brock Beaner, this is probably the nastiest stat line of the week. 15 carries, 151 yards for a 10-yard per carry average. He had 10 tackles, 3 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, 2 forced fumbles, and a blocked punt that he recovered for a touchdown.
Definitely a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah, just impacting the game literally in every way possible.
Yeah, is he being looked at to be recruited? I think maybe.
I think he was at UW this weekend, going to Montana next weekend.
Devin, got any guys you want to talk about 2A or anywhere else?
Yeah, we mentioned Ronan earlier. I think I said the stats, but we'll throw him out there for the 12 of 15, 190 yards, 3 touchdowns. Nolan Wright, quarterback for Seaholm. He went 14 of 21, 211 yards, a touchdown, 17 carries, and 118 on the ground. Yeah, those 2 more guys.
Heck of a game. I also had newly branded quarterback out of Lindbergh with an awesome name, Tyson Glenn Thomas, 200-plus yards and 3 touchdowns all through the air, I believe they all were. Also had 8 tackles on defense, and he's only a sophomore. And I don't think he'd ever played quarterback. Those throws look pretty darn good.
Yeah, super good.
Yeah, he showed some good touch for being really a rookie to the position.
I've got Marcus Nixon written down here of Squalicum.
I was going to say him too.
Yeah. I got Marcus Nixon of Squalicum for 106 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns, and 51-yard touchdown pass in a win against New Westminster. I've also got a couple of guys from Washougal High School. You've maybe heard of him. Holden B., the quarterback. He had himself a good day. 240 yards passing, 112 yards rushing, 5 total touchdowns in a win against River Ridge. We might have one of them to show you here in just a minute as well. Sam Evers, his favorite wide receiver target, 6 catches and 177 yards and a touchdown, and he mossed a guy on that one. That's for dang sure.
Yeah, it's going to be a pretty dynamic connection this year.
I also wanted to shout out Andre Watson, receiver for Seaholm, 2025 receiver. He had 6 catches for 93 yards and 2 touchdowns, and a touchdown that I think we'll see later. I don't know if I put it in there or not because I wasn't told that it was called back when I first saw it, but it was called back due to penalty. But still, he makes a nice play there and stretches it for a touchdown. I also had Efren Hurtado from Proster. He had 9 tackles, 5 QB pressures, and a sack.
He's well on his way to 70 quarterback pressures and 50 tackles for loss again. He's had such nasty numbers the last few years.
Yeah, yes.
Those are the type of numbers that can help a lot of teams.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that is all the 2A guys that I've got, gentlemen. You guys got anybody else, or should we move on down the ranks or up the ranks?
That's all I've got.
All right. All right, so 1A. I'll just start here with Lance Allred from Royal. 218 yards passing and 2 touchdowns. He also had 166 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. So basically almost accounting for 400 yards of offense himself. That's a pretty spectacular day against a quality opponent in Toppenish. I'll let you guys go with somebody else because I've only got a couple 1A guys.
I only have one. I'm sure Devin's got the Nooksack stats. Cole Adams from Kings. That's no slight to you, Devin, at all. Cole Adams from Kings. He had 14 catches for 125 yards and 1 touchdown, and that's that along with Lance Allred were the only 2 I had in 1A.
Yeah, I have I got Colton Lentz from Nooksack, 2025 running back. He had 15 carries for 97 yards, 3 touchdowns, and I mentioned all the offensive linemen as well for Nooksack. I wanted to give them all a shout out. They all had a fantastic day, 404 yards for Nooksack on the ground, with Joey Brown adding 181 as well. I also had a couple Kings guys. Quarterback Noah Clark. He went 20 of 27 for 176 yards, 3 touchdowns, 13 carries, 96 yards, and a touchdown. And their running back, Brandon Kalk, also had 24 carries for 111 yards. And I think Jackson Poller, receiver, he had 2 touchdowns receiving and an interception on defense as well.
I wrote Joey Brown's name down for Nooksack Valley as well, having 181 yards rushing. Anybody else for 1A?
That's it for me.
All right. So I've just got a couple names here for 2B, and if you guys have them, then we're probably going to run pretty slim. There were a lot of guys that had good games, but unfortunately there's not a lot of stats available for them as of right now. The first one that I had was our boy from Kalama here, Aiden Brown, in the loss against Woodland. Aiden had 207 yards passing and 3 touchdowns, and he had 12 carries for 126 yards and 1 touchdown. He had a total of 4 touchdowns in the game and 333 yards of offense. That's pretty spectacular. And I'm pretty sure one of you two has Brody Boness on here from Lynn Ritzfield Sprague, running back. Yeah, he had a measly 10 carries, 183 yards, and 4 touchdowns in 1.5 quarters of work. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, how about his teammate too, Brock Kinch? Brody's only a junior. Kinch is a senior, but in a quarter and a half work, 7 carries, 100 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So between the two of them, they had 17 carries, 283 yards, and 7 touchdowns. That's going to be a running attack that's going to give a lot of people problems in 2B this year.
Absolutely. Well, guys, that's the athlete performances that I've got written down on my paper. Do you guys have anybody else before we get to the actual highlight video that was put together by Devin and myself and Tyson? So we'll get that rolling for you here in just a minute, unless you guys got somebody else.
No, I'm all wrapped up.
Devin, wrapped up?
What class is Shelton?
2A.
Okay, well, let's go there because I want to shout out Gabriel Conklin, quarterback. He had 73% completion percentage, 202 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 42 yards on the ground, and 2 more rushing. So 5 touchdowns on the day.
Nice. All right. So it sounds like that is going to conclude our total athletes then. So let's get to the video here real quick. I got to get some notes here. By the way, when I start the video, guys, you're welcome. It'll mute you automatically. So if you want to unmute you and have some chatter with me throughout it, go right ahead. But all right, for your viewing pleasure, these are some videos that were submitted to Devin and myself, and we will roll it. This first one here is Jacob Champagne of Battleground. A couple of huge blocks right there.
And a touchdown, Tigers.
And then we got Austin Miller here of Bethel on an 89-yard kickoff return, getting some blocks along the near sideline. Gotta like that. There's your boy Efren Hurtado. Nice sack there. Darian Clemens here on the pick 6. Evan said earlier he was just waiting on it, top of your screen. Then here's Cohen William Dyke from Trey Jenkins. Look at him high point the ball. And then here's this track speed I'm talking about. Runs like a deer.
Goodbye.
So this one here, we got 2 different looks at it because it happens so quick, but you're going to get number 9 jumping up and batting that ball down, and then Landon Bolson coming up with the interception there. And then here's Calvin Mickelson, quarterback rolling to his left, and he's going to toss it up to Hero Patterson.
You get nailed.
And then how do you pronounce this one, Devin? Are you here with me on this one? Nevi Egging?
Yeah.
It's a good little punt return there for Squalicum.
He also had that long touchdown that Marcus threw down the middle.
Now this here is a good move right here. Splits the defender, whoop! Gonna split another pair, whoop! And then it's off to the races. Foot race. Sean Etheridge, 90 yards.
Marysville Pilchuck, right?
That is correct.
Getchell, Marysville Getchell.
Oh, okay.
Got some commentary here for this one.
He's got a couple. Here comes the big fella. He's down to the 10. He's at the 5. He gets to the outside. He could score.
Josh Leonard of Bellingham High School. And then here's Holden B. Final play of the first half. As you heard the horn sound in the background. Good vision, good speed. The Idaho commit takes it to the house. Video courtesy of Meg Wachnick from the Columbian.
That huge block at the end.
Yes, thank you so much, Meg, for letting us run that one. Good work on the sideline there. Meg's a great reporter during the game and after. Like, she's got great highlights all the time. She's like one of the best threads to follow for a game day. So those are the highlights that we had submitted, guys. We really appreciate you sending them in. Send more. We'd love to get a few more of them in there. And it is kind of difficult to trim down an entire huddle video. So if you got like a couple minutes of huddle film, just limit it to maybe your top play that you would say whatever your top play was. That way we can try to squeeze it in, because we do have a certain amount of megabytes that the video can be, and then we can't run anything further than that. So that was about the limit to what we could do. So it's about 10 plays each week, and we'd love to get some snippets, so to speak, sent to you guys. What'd you think of those plays, gentlemen?
Awesome.
Bunch of dynamic, difference-making plays, that's for sure.
All right. Well, let's talk rankings real quick here, guys. We got some rankings available, and let's see. Where should we start? You want to start in 4A, Tyson?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, on the bottom of your screen here, the ticker, so to speak. Recruit Radar Pacific Northwest Top 10. And Tyson, you got number 1 is Graham Kapowson still. Number 2, Lake Stevens. Number 3, Skyview. Number 4, Emerald Ridge. Number 5, Kamiakin off their win against Chiawana. Then number 6, Bothell. Number 7, Mount Si, who did not play. Number 8, Sumner. Number 9, Kennedy Catholic, who lost their opener. And then number 10, your favorite team, Moses Lake. So, Tyson, just walk us through the 4A rankings here and kind of what has you putting these teams where you see them right now.
Graham Kapowson, I think they're just the deepest team as far as playmakers go. One easy week 1. Lake Stevens, big win over Garfield. I could easily flip those two teams, but as I look forward, I think Graham Kapowson is a little bit deeper overall, but I expect them both to be at least semifinal teams. And then I bumped Skyview above Emerald Ridge, mainly because that win over Jesuit, just shutting them out alone, let alone beating them by 28. That's a statement win for them to start the year. And not that Emerald Ridge's loss was not impressive. Puyallup's a good team, but giving up 23 to a team like Puyallup, if I was to put those two against each other, I'd say Jesuit's probably a bigger opponent. Kamiakin moves up to number 5. Or actually, they moved down a spot basically just due to the fact that Skyview jumped up into the top 3 and kind of leapfrog Kamiakin, even though that win against Chiawana was impressive. Then I got Bothell at 6 with that shutout win over there in New York. Moved Mount Si from 6 to 7 just because they haven't played yet. So, we still really don't know what kind of team they're going to have, even though it looks like it should be a good one on paper. Got Spanaway Lake this week. That should be a good opener for them. Sumner moves up to number 8 instead of 9. Essentially, Chiawana is the team that got taken out of this top 10 despite losing to a top 10 team. And I replaced them with Kennedy Catholic. And like you mentioned, that was a loss, but a 3-point loss on the road to a big, Denver area school. Pretty impressive. And then I kept Moses Lake right there at number 10 because they didn't do anything to not show me that they deserve to be a top 10 school, beating Ephrata 58-3 with it 52-3 at halftime.
Devin, thoughts on the top 10 there?
I like his top 10. I think it's solid. I don't think I'd change much. I definitely agree with putting Skyview up just because that was a huge win, and I think Mount Si's in the perfect spot too. They haven't played, and Bothell as well, playing that New York team. Do you guys know the final score of that game?
34-zip.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. Was that team any?
I mean, I don't know much about New York football, but
Yeah.
I assume if you're going to travel across the country, they must have had at least a decent reputation.
Yeah. I like your top 10 though. I think it's solid. Nothing I would change really.
Yeah, I mean, the teams I'm obviously looking at that are right below there, I'd say if you were to say also mentioned Camas, obviously, with that game against Yelm. Eastlake could be sneaky and be in there. And then that mentioned it earlier with that Woodinville 30-0 win over that Hawaii team. I think there's just a few teams that I just want to see a couple more matchups in weeks.
Yeah, Woodinville winning that game 30-0. That really caused me to open my eyes and be like, ooh, Woodinville, Kingco, better watch out.
Yep, they always are a solid football team, that they just play in a tough league overall. It's had some powerhouses the last few years, but they have two over my lifetime.
Yeah, I like the top 10 overall myself. I think that Skyview definitely deserved to get to where they're at. Whether or not, they beat Emerald Ridge in a game against one another, who knows? But they did play Graham Kapowson last year in the playoffs, and Graham Kapowson ended up beating them 42-28. And I think that Skyview, is still very much in the conversation as to being able to win potentially a game against Graham Kapowson or against Emerald Ridge. Shutting out Jesuit 28-0. It was one of those games that I was just like, yeah, that's very, very, very impressive. So I might make an argument that Lake Stevens probably could be considered number one after the style of win that they had against Garfield. I don't want to disrespect the win that Graham Kapowson had, but Rogers not of the strongest opponents available for a week one win, but it's a league game. You got to play it. It's not like they wanted to schedule that one out of conference or anything like that. They would schedule tough games any place, anytime, anywhere. But I do feel that Lake Stevens did a lot in that win to kind of readjust focus towards them as being maybe the best team in 4A and defending state champions. What would be your thoughts about that, guys?
Like I said, I think I easily could put them as number one also, but I think the transfers that GK got in just kind of pushes them to a next echelon of being deep. I mean, they have, 4 receivers that could probably be number one receivers anywhere else in the state for that matter, not just within their own league. So the kid we didn't even mention, Supralis, he was 13 of 16, I think, for 296 and 6 touchdowns in that week one opener. So that's going to be pretty regular when you talk throwing to Chris Norris, and Jabez Woods was the main guy there last year. But now you got Malachi Durant obviously impacting the game like we spoke about earlier. And there's even one more, Noah Flores at tight end. And there's one more wide receiver I'm leaving out. They could run a spread, and it's going to be tough to stop when you got that many weapons. So you talked about like you mentioned like a Skyview versus Emerald Ridge matchup.
Close game.
Yeah, or Emerald Ridge has targets too that are D1 players, and Lake Stevens does too, but I don't think anybody has the depth Graham Kapowson has.
Yeah, fair statement. I mean, yeah, I just think that it was worth mentioning that I think Lake Stevens is right there with them still, and time will tell. I mean, they're not going to play in the regular season, but I think it's safe to say that both teams are on their way to having another postseason berth, and there's a good opportunity that they might match up with one another down the road. So let's move on to the 3A rankings here, guys. O'Day moves into number 1. Yelm drops to number 2. Eastside Catholic number 3. Bellevue number 4. Kennewick 5, Garfield 6, Monroe number 7, Mount Spokane 8, Lincoln up to 9, and then Stanwood at 10. So the Irish of O'Day move into the number 1 spot. Yelm drops 1 spot after a narrow victory against Camas. And then Eastside Catholic playing a very, very tough team out of California. They stay in the top 3 there. What were you thinking on the rankings here for 3A, Tyson, before we kind of go round table on it? You're on mute, by the way.
I really didn't change much. The top 10 teams all stayed the same. The order changed a bit. O'Day 40-0 win against Union. I said this last week before, when I kind of put these out in week 1, that I think O'Day and Yelm are a toss-up, but O'Day's just got, I think some of their size that they have on that team is, bigger than a lot of D1, maybe a few Pac-12 offensive lines. And Union has been a great program, but I think Yelm just kind of sputtering in week 1. I thought, O'Day came out obviously ready to go. Eastside Catholics lost to Orange Lutheran. I mean, how do you even really consider that a loss? Orange Lutheran beat De La Salle already this year. Bellevue, they did get handled by Central Catholic much more than they did last year, but it's still Bellevue. So I'm going to need to see them lose 3 games before they probably even move past the top 5. I did happen to move Kennewick up from number 7 to the 5 spot, mainly because they hung 59 on not the Pasco of 1998.
I think we lost your connection there for a second, Tyson. Can you hear me at all, Devin?
I hear you, yeah.
Can you hear Tyson at all?
No, I don't hear Tyson.
Yeah, I think so. I think your audio went dead. We'll have to give him a live stream. I'll have to give him a chat real quick here.
He's still talking.
I know. He doesn't realize it. Oh, well.
Well, I like his top 10 other than personally, I wouldn't have Monroe in my top 10 right now. I think they only had like a 34-25 win over Roosevelt. And I don't see how you don't have Ferndale in a 10. Just after a win like that. It's just if you beat a 24 game win streak, you break that, you should at least be number 10, I think. I stick him in there, but
no,
I assume his thinking is he doesn't know.
I'm with you. I feel bad. I feel bad that we're not catching this rant that he's doing right now or whatever he's saying, because he's like looking at it finally now. He's like, wait, what's going on? So, I don't know if a dog unplugged a cord or something like that, but something cut out on it there. But I'm with you though, Devin. I mean, if we could speak for Tyson real quick, I mean, he'll have to go back and hear what we have to say. But man, yeah, I mean, Ferndale. Ooh, I think that they kind of have to be in the top 10 after a win like that against Linden. I mean, I don't know what to say other than that. I mean, to the point that Bellevue has to lose quite a bit, I suppose. Yeah, but they have a tough one against Lake Stevens coming up this week. If they do end up losing that game, like, they may be a top 5 team still, but I just don't know how you rank them as a top 5 team with just being 0-2. But I understand like what the point of all of it is. The point is that they probably still are a top 5 3A team, but still it's kind of hard to figure out. So looks like he's gonna do something here, and we'll figure it out. Let's go.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying as well. I think maybe like Kennewick and Garfield over Bellevue, especially if they have 2 losses.
No, definitely. Eastside Catholic at 3 after a loss. I mean, you don't know a whole lot about how good that they really are in terms of the state of Washington 3A. The team that they did play was, pretty good. So we'll give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm with that.
What do you think about Lakes?
I mean, they had a win, impressive win. I can't remember off the very top of my head who it was that they played, but I do have it on the scoreboard ticker somewhere. Lincoln of Tacoma ended up winning their game as well this last week. I think that there's a lot of unknowns, honestly, with those teams. I feel like that Lakes was one of those teams last year that kind of broke through and was really on the precipice of doing something really good. They
running back.
Yeah, they had a big game against Lincoln last year, and Lincoln ended up getting it with them. But Lakes hung tough all year long last year.
Yeah.
And they've been a team that's had a good program going back ways, and then had some down years, and then it's nice to see them kind of get back into the mix though. They're very much should draw some attention. I still think that Lincoln and Lakes have to kind of prove something to the media, at least throughout the state, not to themselves and not to the other teams, because those teams are prideful and they're going to work hard and they're going to go about their business. I think that Lincoln's going to be a good team by the end of the year, all throughout the season, honestly. Whether or not the ranking that they get each week is going to kind of support how good they are ultimately, it's just going to be because there's a lot of chalk with O'Day. There's a lot of chalk with Eastside Catholic and Bellevue. And you could probably throw Yelm into that category now too. I mean, if I was to mentally compare to where I'd expect them to end up by the end of the year, like another team, I would say that I would put them up against a team like Stanwood. I'd put them up against a team like Garfield, somewhere in that range. Mount Spokane and Monroe, they're kind of unknowns for me. But Tyson, can you hear us okay, buddy?
Yeah.
He can't. Oh, he can?
Yeah, we got you back here, buddy. Sorry.
I don't know what happened. I accidentally kicked my charger and it made everything stop working.
We missed your whole rant, so you're gonna have to go back and explain what this whole thing was.
Yeah.
Oh, I was basically just saying that no 10 teams changed, and I feel like throughout the year they're kind of just gonna alter. They'll be shuffled around. I think overall these, unless someone really gets upset by somebody out of this list, I don't see it changing too much other than the order.
Okay. Yeah, so one of the things that Devin and I were talking about is that we felt that Ferndale was probably deserving of being in the top 10. Ultimately, do you feel that there's just legitimately 10 teams that you think are better than them at this point in the season? Or do you just feel like that we don't know what we're getting maybe from Linden?
I think it's more that we don't know what we're getting from Linden. Not that I expect some major drop-off on Linden's terms, but overall, I look at this list and, from a roster standpoint, I mean, I think Ferndale showed that they obviously can reload and be just fine, but I still would like to see that matchup with Stanwood before I think that they need to bump someone like that out.
Fair point. Yeah. We'll see. Yeah, I mean, we talked about it in the first week of the season that, at least from my standpoint, 3A is the most competitive, deepest class, probably has the most teams that have a legitimate chance of winning a championship. So that only strengthens the argument. If Ferndale's outside the top 10 and there are 10 teams that are better than them, then, you look at what they can do against a team like Linden, who's won a couple of championships recently. It just kind of adds validity to the fact that it's super competitive and super tough. Anything else, guys, that we want to mention on 3A before we move on down to 2A?
I just wanted to, what I did say as part of my rant was Bellevue, I think unless they start out with 3 losses, I can't see putting them outside of the top 5. And then I mentioned Eastside Catholic's loss, I don't know if this cut out was before it cut out, but that Orange Lutheran team beat De La Salle already this year. So that's a pretty impressive loss. The sneakiest team I think on this list are at 8 and 9 was Mount Spokane and Lincoln, as far as maybe being even better than that ranking shows, even though it still puts them in the top 10 of the class. But yeah, I'll be interested to see how, like I was saying, how things move around with this list through the year.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mount Spokane had a good week one, clobbering University 47-20. So I mean, they could be a very real team.
Yeah, and they were good last year too. But even
Oh,
one
yeah.
more year to season, you know, kind of you almost forget about that area overall. It's like it's over there in Idaho.
Yeah, West Idaho.
Yeah.
Let's move down the ranks to the 2A classification. At number 1, Tyson's got the Enumclaw Hornets, followed by at number 2 the Highline Pirates, and then number 3 Tumwater, number 4 North Kitsap. Dropping down to number 5, the 2-time defending champion Linden Lions, and then at 6 is Washougal, 7 Anacortes, 8 Cedro Woolley, 9 Othello, and entering the top 10 at number 10, the Ridgefield Sputters. Tyson, he's got Enumclaw now as the new number 1. Linden drops 4 spots in your rankings down to number 5. But look who makes the biggest jump of them all, up 8 spots from number 10 to number 2. Cooper's boys, the Highline Pirates, after taking apart Rainier Beach 42-0. What do you want to talk about first with the 2A rankings?
That's probably the biggest leapfrog I'll ever do, frankly, from 10 to 2. I mean, you know, and who knows? Maybe it's too much. You know, as far as not knowing what you got with the team, we don't really know what Rainier Beach is going to be like. So maybe at this point in the year, that win looks actually a lot more impressive than it is. I'm not saying that's the case because I think regardless, you played one of the best coached teams in the state. So it's always going to take your best shot. But compared to any of these other wins on the list of the rest of these teams, it was by far the most impressive. So why not, you know?
Well, what else can we talk about here in this top 10 that jumps off the page?
Tumwater leapfrogged, I think, from 7.
Yeah.
If I go back.
So we had originally last week, we had Tumwater and Burlington Edison on our list of games to pick. And then I kind of petitioned and said, you know what? I really don't think that we need to pick this game. I think it's kind of a little obvious. Tumwater just absolutely took it to Burlington. I think that they're about as real as it gets for 2A opponents. I think that they're going to be very, very tough. And with WF West losing that home game to Ridgefield, that might be, you know, a good opportunity for Tumwater to look at it and think, hey, guys, we're right there. We can win this league back this season. New faces for Tumwater in certain areas, but a lot of returning guys from last year, new head coach, same philosophy. I think Tumwater is very much a game opponent, and, you know, that was exactly what I expected from them last week. I mean, Highline getting up to number 2, I would make the argument they should be number 1. I mean, considering who they beat and Rainier Beach, but I know that you guys are on the fence about, you know, what Rainier Beach team, you know, we're really getting here and what they're going to look like by the time the season ends. I'll tell you what, I'd love to revisit this game at about week 5, week 6, and I'd love to see where Rainier Beach is at. And you know what? We may not even need to, though. If you really think about it, next week, Highline takes on Kennedy Catholic. I mean, if they go out and beat Kennedy Catholic and they're 2-0, I mean, we don't really need to look back at the Rainier Beach game at all. We don't need to see how real Rainier Beach is. We'll know right away how real Highline is, and that, you know, that they could be maybe the favorite in 2A.
Yeah, definitely. I think, you know, Rainier Beach is a team that's, if you're drawing like a parallel, they're like an Oregon State from years past where they kind of start slow, but by the end of the year, they're so good. And that's probably going to be the case for them this year. Yeah, if they, you know, it's a tall task playing at Kennedy Catholic this week, but we said it was a tall task this last week. So if they go win that game, I think they've solidified themselves just from not only from a quality win standpoint, but from just the strength of their schedule. I look at them compared to, like, say, Linden. Linden has 5 home games this year and 3 games on the road, and all of their toughest matchups come at home. And, you know, this last week was at home. This next week against WF West is at home. They've got Anacortes at home. So I think as far as earning respect from Highline did get the game against Rainier Beach at home, but if they go down and beat, the 4A runner-up last year in their own place, look out.
Oh, definitely. I kind of think Cedro should be higher than Anacortes here. Am I wrong for that?
Mount Vernon is, they beat them by more than Anacortes beat Oak Harbor, but Mount Vernon is a program that's suffered for a long time as far as quality football goes. So, and based off of last year, Anacortes mopped Cedro Woolley in that game up and down the field, just similar fashion that Cedro did to other teams. So
it's hard to think that Anacortes is going to do that again the way they played, but based off the officiating, like you're saying,
defensively they played just fine. That's the thing. Yeah, and like I said, I think they didn't really have much of a rhythm to their offense, or their play calling was kind of all over the place, but they still did run for 180, almost 200 yards. They probably could have ran for more if there wasn't 5-minute delays between spotting the ball every 2 minutes in that game. For me, it's a prove it thing from I don't think I'll have Cedro above Anacortes if Anacortes was to lose a game or two between now and then. Maybe that story changes, but I need to see him prove it, because last year they looked far outmanned, and it was kind of just the Karsten Reynolds show. So I need to see. I'll have to see that game head to head to feel like they need to be higher.
Well, we all picked Anacortes, I believe, right, to win the championship for 2A in our season preview. So, based on our picks, how are we feeling about that after it's just week one? But how are we feeling after week one? Because I'll say this, I ain't feeling too great about their ability to put up points. If I remember last year, they had 40 something against Oak Harbor. So, maybe we got to give Oak Harbor some credit and get in watching some film and getting better from one year to the next.
I think this week Oak Harbor plays Ferndale, so that'll be a good game on Friday. We'll see if Oak Harbor is maybe improved.
Tough schedule.
But I think my pick with Anacortes, I'm still confident in it. I think Highline is a team to watch for, definitely, and I like Washougal as well. But I'm still confident in Anacortes. They'll get going and they'll be just fine. They have too many playmakers.
Yeah, and they have a few kids that really are good additions. I think their defense will be better this year than it was last year. I think that, honestly, I'd say they'll be a more defensive team than they are an offensive team this year. There was 2 kids in that game that were just all over the place that weren't on the team last year at all. Reclassified sophomore Luca Moore, he was like shot out of a cannon from the secondary for Anacortes, coming up and making basically fearless tackles, laying out guys in the flats, just taking their legs out from them. And then they've got another linebacker that I believe is pretty much stepped right into forgive me for forgetting that kid's name last year.
Adrian
Castro, thank you. Tyler Olson is his name, and he made a lot of great plays in that game too. And overall, I think they made a step up on defense, despite losing, a guy like Hayden John to Idaho, who actually made his first tackle in that game last week on special teams. But I think they just got to figure out a consistent offensive approach. They're a team that has liked to play with their toys, if I want to put a phrase to it. Even last year and this year, they have a lot of different guys to get the ball to. I think sometimes it's a complex approach in the way that they approach the game on the offensive side of the ball. So kind of like Yelm, I think the offense had a sputtering day, but we're going to see a few times where they drop 40 plus on people, no problem this year.
Mm-hmm.
Well, time will tell, like it does with everything. And I'm kind of a little bit on your side of the fence there, Tyson. In terms of how they're approaching it, when you got a couple guys that ran for over 200 yards each, in a playoff game against a playoff team that, had its own version of firepower and decent defense, you'd like to see something maybe a little bit more straightforward. That's just my 2 cents. I'm not, not a coach, don't pretend to be. But just watch a lot of football, and that'd be my takeaway from it.
Yeah, not in your top 10. I wanted to point out as well before we continue real fast is Prosser. That's one team that I think could sneak in there. But maybe I don't know if you have a couple fringe teams that you thought about.
Definitely. Prosser, Archbishop is another one that, they have to prove it, obviously, but when I got my eye on Seaholm
against Lake Washington for
it's going to be an even bigger win this week. You wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, Seaholm obviously is a team that is right there. Stillacum, however you
Stillacum, yeah.
Yeah, they're another team that I have my eye on, and frankly, even Aberdeen, I've got my eye on. But as far as moving Ridgefield into the top 10 in place of WF West, that was a great win. So granted, WF West isn't the same as last year, but
let's not wait. Hold on, they're playing Linden this week. I mean, a lot can change.
Well, sure,
you never know.
Sure, they graduated some good. Obviously, Fugate was a big player for them and kind of helped them tremendously the last couple of years, especially just being that a guy that could actually get the ball into Brumfield's hands. Now the ball is in Brumfield's hands every single play. So, yeah, I like that Ridgefield team. I'll keep. That'll be one I support too.
North Kitsap played Mount Tahoma, and it was a tough game for them, and they ended up gutting that one out. I think that we don't know a lot about them yet, but they have potential. But they have a good game this week against Tumwater, battle of the top 5 teams. That's going to be really exciting. I think Washougal is very dangerous. After watching their game against River Ridge, a team that they needed a 2-point conversion against the year prior on the road against River Ridge, they absolutely demolished them in that game, and they looked slow. River Ridge did compared to Washougal. They looked like they just had way more athleticism and speed. Evers was a problem on the outside. B obviously a problem all over the field. But the main takeaway that I had from that game was how improved Washougal's defense was. Only allowed 8 points in that game. To a 3A opponent. They play Toppenish this year. Toppenish spanked them pretty good last year, and Washougal was a league champion in 2A. So I'm really interested to see how Washougal does this upcoming week here. So any thoughts on those teams before we move on, guys?
Othello's the only one we didn't mention. I wouldn't discount their close win over Connell. That's a feisty program, always will be. I don't know if you guys are familiar with their new head coach, Scott Forsyth, but if you see at all about the kind of boys he's raising, you know what kind of football team that is. His 12-year-old kid just ran 14 miles the other day because his brother bet him he couldn't, and he's freaking bench pressing. I forget what it is, but just go to his page and you'll see that kid looks like he's 12 going on 18, and all of his boys are. He himself benches 500 pounds. So I know that was a strong 1A football team that they barely beat. Don't discount the score of that one.
That statement made me feel like that I am doing so little in life.
14 miles by a 12-year-old kid.
Thanks a lot.
All
right. Let's do some 1A stuff on that note. Well, Tyson, no shock here. We got Royal coming in as your number 1 team for good reason. Then right behind them, you got Nooksack Valley at number 2. And then all the way up to number 3, Kashmir. And then working their way to the number 4 spot after a big win against Linden Christian is Lakeside 9 Mile Falls. Kings is at 5. Montesano is at 6. La Center is at 7. And then at 8 is Linden Christian. At 9 is Zilla. And at 10, Toppenish. What were your thoughts here on this one?
Well, Toppenish takes the biggest dive, obviously. It's not like it was a bad loss. It was the same loss as they had last year, like we said earlier. But I think they're just a little more limited. So they kind of got to earn it to stay in the top 10, because I'd say there's plenty of 1A teams that had impressive performances in week 1. But Kashmir moves to number 3. Not that they're 56-13 over Newport is a heck of a first week win. I might even I think I have that opponent wrong. I want to say that wasn't Newport that they played. but they did win 56-13. But Linden Christian slides down from so Toppenish and Linden Christian were both at 3 and 4 last week. Can move Linden Christian down to 8, Toppenish down to 10. But Kashmir, I think taking the 3 spot over Lakeside, what I was getting at is it's more of a testament to how in love with their roster that I am. And I'd say 1A, I probably feel the most confident as far as like it's essentially almost ranked off of straight team depth. And I feel very in tune with this list. Obviously, Linden Christian has a lot of talent, but sputtering like that on the road, they're probably top 5 in terms of talent. But Lakeside obviously has to move up ahead of them after a win like that. And King stays right where they were. Monty's impressive win moves them up to 5. La Center goes up from 9 to 7. And then you got Zilla sliding up a spot. So that was actually a really good win over a good Ellensburg team too. So overall, though, I feel really good about this list. I think, those top 4 teams are destined to be there when it's all said and done. Maybe with a few surprises.
Yeah, I like the top 10. I think maybe Kashmir's a little too high. I might like Kings, Lakeside over them. Maybe even Montesano. Sorry, God, I can't. But I understand why, and I like it. I think Lakeside winning over LC. That's why I'd put them above. But I think you have the perfect 10. And I think, like you said as well, you can intertwine any of them and be no problem other than that top 4, 3 is probably pretty set. Especially the top 2. I think the top 2 is perfect.
Yeah, I mean, there's other couple teams on my, I'm looking at, obviously, Chelan. Deer Park. I'm not a believer, sadly.
Fear the deer, baby.
Wow.
They lost some good players last year, and
evidently not.
I'm assuming. Let's see. Here's the big thing about that East Valley win. Did Diesel Wilkinson play? Do we know? Because if he played, I don't think they beat him 35-7. That's not East Valley is not a good team. Diesel Wilkinson's a great player. They think they beat him last year too. Yeah, we'll see. That's not the top team on my list, I would say, as far as other 1A schools. Like the Chelan win was a big one. Obviously, it's against Brewster, but Colville beating Tenino by 20.
It's a good win.
Yeah.
Freeman beating West Valley of Spokane, a playoff team last year that obviously lost like their 3 best players, and Rayshawn Eaton, Grady Walker, and Jackson.
I probably might have Freeman over Toppenish at this point.
Freeman's a tough one too because they lost probably the best player in 1A last year off their team in Bowen Phelps.
The best? There's someone who goes to USC right now from 1A.
Okay, Cade Eldridge. But as far as a guy who totally had an impact on his team from beginning to end.
Yeah.
And then Natchez Valley's win over Cascade of Leavenworth Cascade was a decent team last year. Natchez Valley beating them 41-7. And then one of my favorite teams in the 1A class that isn't ranked yet, but we'll find a little bit more about the next couple of weeks is Seton Catholic.
Yep. I mean, if we're going to go to that league and that division in the Trico, it's going to be interesting because you got Castle Rock, who just lost to RA Long, the team that had lost 15 games in a row in that league. And then obviously you got Seton Catholic. You still got Kingsway Christian in there. And then you got La Center. Based on how things went this last week, I would have La Center as the clear-cut favorite to win that league and maybe even go a lot further than just winning a league championship. They really took it to Hawkinson, guys. And the year prior, they were, I think, up 19-0 in that game against Hawkinson, and Hawkinson ultimately came back and beat them. Not this time. I mean, they absolutely laid the wood to them. And Hawkinson's a team that isn't too many years removed from a state championship. Like, I will argue with just about anybody while drinking adult beverages at the bar. You want to talk COVID year high school football when there was no state playoffs, I'm telling you right now, that Hawkinson team that they had probably wins the state championship over anybody that year. And it's just been a few seasons since then, and it's amazing what having a regime change after having like a borderline Hall of Fame style coach does to your program. But Hawkinson gets dudes. That's a huge win for La Center. And although Hawkinson's on the downtick right now, perennially a very, very, very good program down here in Southwest Washington. I really think that La Center's a team that you got to watch that should be climbing the ranks very soon.
Yeah, I love their roster too. They were a team that was pretty deep as far as guys went that, like to run and hit. That's really the biggest thing I always look for when I'm looking at these teams. And a lot of teams have good athletes, but a lot of teams also have athletes that are just athletes. And they might be fast, they might be quick, but do they love to tackle? And that's, I feel pretty comfortable about every single team on this list that they love to run and hit. Especially when you talk those top 6-7 spots.
Nick, you're muted.
Good deal, Devin. I love it. That's why we got co-hosts here. They got my back. I'm going to do
I thought my headphones died.
I got no snare in my headphones.
Yeah.
Turn them shits up. All right.
Yeah.
So now on the screen, guys, is the 2B rankings. Tyson, this will round out the rankings that we've got here. And at number 1, No Shock, Napavine. At number 2, No Shock, Okanagan. At number 3, Lind, Ritzville, Sprague. And then at number 4, Toledo. Number 5, the combo known as PL Willapa Valley. And then number 6, Riverview. Number 7, Northwest Christian. Number 8, Raymond South Bend. Number 9, Reardon. And then number 10, Happy Friday Harbor. Tyson, obviously 1 and 2 was not difficult to put together, but Lynn Ritzfield Sprague jumps all the way up to number 3. What are your thoughts on the 2B rankings?
Well, I only moved them up 1 spot. I had them in number 4 in the preseason one. They took Chihuila's spot, who got shut out by a team that's making their debut here in the top 10 of Northwest Christian down there at number 7. Toledo obviously slides up 2 spots over with their win over Raymond South Bend, who I had Raymond South Bend last week at 8. And Toledo was at 6, like I said. So 2-spot jump, while PL Willapa Valley stays at 5. Riverview moves from 7 to 6 by default, with Chihuila getting knocked out of the top 10. And Riverview had a great win over Kiona Benton, 48-6. So I thought that was a heck of a way to start the year. They got an impressive quarterback, like we've touched on. Northwest Christian moves into 7 because Chihuila, they might not be the same Chihuila team that they were last year, but what do you know? Preseason week 1, I thought, there's probably as good as they were last year. They'll probably be a top 5 team again, but they handled them obviously with a shutout, so they take 7. Raymond South Bend, 7-point loss to Toledo. If you lose to another top 10 team by a score and a shootout like that, it's hardly a loss. And then 9 and 10 change spots, or were replaced with new teams altogether. Lake Roosevelt lost to Reardon, 14-12. So Reardon actually takes Lake Roosevelt's spot. And then looking ahead at this next week, they play number 7 Northwest Christian. So that's going to be a good matchup of 2 teams that are both started 1-0, and I think are programs on the rise. Reardon's got one of the biggest linemen in the state, Jonathan Holdway, on their team. He's like about 6'7", 325. It's funny, he always circles himself on his highlights. And I think I messaged him once. I'm like, we know who you are. Like, you don't see many linemen that size in the 2B class. You stick out like a sore thumb. But other than that, Coopville, a 3-point loss, I believe, on the road at Clahalia. They were at number 10. They beat Clahalia last year. Actually, it was a game that was really close, and Clahalia just happened to have the ball last and scored the go-ahead touchdown. But I wouldn't be surprised if they get back into the top 10, but I replaced them with Friday Harbor with their after their win over South Woodby, 35-20.
Nicely done on the breakdown of the top 10 for 2B. I got no problem with what we've got going on here. I think that Raymond South Bend is probably still borderline a top 10 team despite the loss to Toledo. I don't know if Toledo is quite going to be the fourth best team because I really, truly, in the bottom of my heart, feel like that Kalama is going to end up being in the top 5 by the time the season's over with. I know they're not in the top 10 right now, but based on what they did against Woodland, if their defense could shore up the rush defense specifically, they will be very much a top 5 team.
They're a team that I feel like I'm basically overlooking, kind of like Eastlake in 4A. You know, like they've been perennially a team that's in that top 10, and that kid's the Aiden Brown's performance. You're not going to find many others like that in that class. So, you know, very easily could put. It's kind of an afterthought, really, putting it together. Especially being that they started 0-1, you don't think about it like I did some of these other classifications, but. They're certainly on that also to be mentioned list. I put Goldendale on there. They had a 50-15 win over Columbia. Obviously, Ilwaco, it's a team we'll discuss here in a minute, beating North Beach 47-0. Manson's a team I kind of like. Happened to beat Cle-Elum 35-6. And then Onalaska played a team from Canada, so I don't know how much that means, but 46-13 W. And then Tri-Cities Prep beating Umatilla from Oregon 42-0. Those were all notable games that I wrote down and teams I'll have my eye on moving forward.
Devin, any thoughts at all for 2B?
I have no thoughts for 2B.
Perfect.
I do not know much other than Kalama and Aiden Brown, and yeah.
No worries, buddy. Sounds good.
Bonus.
I got some paper and I got some names of some teams that we're going to go through and pick.
Oh, yeah.
So you guys ready to get to some pickups for this week?
Yep, I will. I got mine right here.
All right. Cool.
Where we
All right.
Start? Top of your list?
Yeah, we'll start at the top of the list. Just give me one quick second here.
I think it's Glacier Peak versus Camas.
All right, there we go. Yeah, Glacier Peak at home against Camas, exactly. I don't really know what I'm getting in this game, honestly. If I'm getting the same Camas team that just played against Yelm, I'm feeling really good about the paper makers here. I don't really know what I'm going to get here from Glacier Peak, and I think that the loss that Camas had is a loss that you could definitely build on. But I'm nervous about the travel. I'm nervous about the bus ride and how it's going to prepare the team. I'm going to go with my gut, and I'm going to say Glacier Peak wins this one.
Nice. I didn't realize. I imagine it's a product of Tui Sopo leaving Mariner, but I didn't realize Glacier Peak picked up that Isaiah Queller, starting quarterback and safety last year for Mariner. Heck of a player. That running back they have, gosh, he's got a complex name. Can't remember it off the top of my head, but they look like they should be pretty good. But I'd say Camas, just having to play a team like Yelm week 1 and play them that close, even though you lost and it's heartbreaking, that's a building block that's only going to fuel their fire. I went Camas.
Me as well. I also went Camas just because last week it's such a, I think, a good loss in a way, and we had talked about it earlier how they arguably should have won that game. If that was a touchdown or not, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think Titan Brody looks really good in the offense.
I mean, I'm
solid, but the defense is what impressed me the most. That's why I'm going Camas.
I'm okay with you guys going opposite of me here because that means I got a chance to potentially pick up a game here. But at the same time, it's like I'm really honestly looking at this like playing a team like Yelm is going to take a lot out of you. I mean, they're a real physical team. I mean, and having a loss like that at home and having to go on the road against another really good team that you played last season, I don't know. It takes a lot out of you. I mean, it's ultimately why I'm going to go Peak on this one. But all right, 2-1 split. Next game on the docket, Moses Lake at Kamayakin. Tyson, you're going first on this one.
And I'm going to the game. It's on Thursday. I'm going to go down and watch that one again after watching Moses Lake last week. I actually have their official stats here now. Might as well go over them. Brady J was 24 of 31 in that game. We're 266 and 6 touchdowns. So I was pretty well on the money with my assumption of his yardage and completion percentage. Again, no interceptions. Joel Middleton, mentioned him having 5+ and 100+. Well, he had 8 receptions for 128 and 3 touchdowns. A kid that I didn't even talk about, but there's video. I think I missed his touchdown, but Hayden Throneberry, 6 catches, 61 yards and a TD. Kyson had 4 for 45 and a TD. Carson Huberdeau, 4 catches for 22 yards and a TD. So Middleton took 3 of them, but the sophomore really spread it around. And then Thomas's punt return and his kick return. And then you look at their defensive stats, and I mean, they've got 7 guys on here that I didn't even talk about yet that led their team in tackles. So they're deep. I'm taking their offense on the road against Kamayakin. I think they're going to, if you don't score 30+ points, then you're going to have to score that to beat this team. I don't see anybody really slowing that attack down. Not when you got a guy like Thomas, who first 2 touches of the game for him were touchdowns.
Devin?
I think it's going to be a great game. And I'm jealous you get to watch it in person. But I think with Moses Lake, it's a really big prove it game. And if they do have a game like they did last week, they are a real contender, I think, and we were talking a lot about them in the preseason show as well. But I do think Kamayakin wins it. I think the defense is too good. That's my pick. I'll go with that one.
Yeah, I am ultimately struggling with this one because you're going to have a team that has a lot of firepower offensively and in Moses Lake. And then you're going to have a team that has the ability to run the football and pound the football and control the line of scrimmage and a good defense as well. That kind of just means they have the ability to slow the game down to their favor if they need to. And ultimately, I'm also going Kamayakin on this one. Tyson stands alone here. I'm not saying that Moses Lake doesn't win it, and I'm sure that you'll have the Moses Lake pom-poms. And I got a soft spot for the Chiefs, So, I mean –
Mavericks. It's Mavericks.
I know. I'm just saying. I want to pick Moses Lake, but I just can't. I think Kamayakin, they didn't let me down in week 1, and I figured that they would have a tough test with Chiawana, which they did, but they ultimately dug deep and passed it. So, I think I'm a believer in Skyview now. Week 1, I remember saying that, hey, you got to prove it, before I'm really going to take you that seriously and have you that high in the rankings. I'm going to issue the same challenge to Moses Lake this week. If you go out and win this game this week, I'm very much a believer. I'm with you. And I probably won't pick against you for the rest of the year just because you upended me in week 2. But I'm still going to go with Kamayakin in this one. So,
one thing I'm interested to know, I just actually tried to text Coach Jay, is if 2 of Moses Lake's best players, not that they needed them, but didn't play in that last game, and one's their mauling right tackle and their starting running back. So that could have been a big product to why they threw the ball so much. I'll be interested to see if they play and if that attack, they decide to see if they can run the ball against Kamayakin too. It'll be a great one to watch. I'll have try to do another full thread where I think I got like all but 1 touchdown on film this last week. So that was fun.
Right on, buddy. Well, hey, we are looking forward to the film and the updates and whatever the beat is. If they're winning, if they're losing, we'll be there to pick you up, just like you'll be there to rub it in our face. Let's go to the next game, guys. Prosser at Skyline. This is a game that you're probably not going to see too often. A 2A team against a 4A team, and it's a Kingco 4A team against a CWAC 2A team. Both these teams have had good history and good tradition. This is a tough one to pick off the cusp of my head. Tyson went first last time. I went first on the first one. Devin, you're on the spot here.
Oh, man. This one, like a lot of our games, actually, that we're picking, I did have trouble. I went back and forth. I do. Sky, like you mentioned, 4A and a 2A, it is a big difference, in going up 2 classes. But, I like Prosser, and I like their defense, the defensive line specifically. I'm going to go on a limb, and I'm going to say Prosser. I'm going to say that they get this upset over Skyline, and, definitely will hopefully be in Tyson's top 10 next week with a win.
I went opposite of that pick. I'm going to go Skyline home team here. And, last week I learned my lesson by picking Mark Morris over Battleground. There's such a difference, between a 2A school and a 4A school. It's a huge difference. And I'm not saying that 2A teams can't beat 4A teams because Mark Morris beat Battleground the year before. But when you've got the factors of playing in a very, very tough league such as the King Co., with teams like North Creek, with teams like Bothell, with teams like Skyline, Woodinville, East Lake, it's tough, consistently tough to win league championships and to make the playoffs. And Skyline was just there a year ago. They did lose some guys, but that's a program that has been around for quite some time. And again, travel, it's not easy on the body and it's not easy on the schedule. Skyline's my pick.
Yeah, I went Skyline as well. I kind of feel like Devin does. I really could very easily see Prosser winning this game. It was probably one of the toughest ones to pick, but I'm taking the home team for the reasons you just stated, Nick. And, it's probably one of the bigger atmospheres and stadiums and programs that Prosser will take on that rivals their own. But the difference is, a graduating class of kids at Skyline is as big as Prosser's whole school.
Yep, it's tough. When you got 90 guys, 85 guys dressed on the other sideline, it's a lot of opportunities for guys to compete. We love the Seahawks, right? You got a couple things on the back of your thing there, and that's their mantra is compete. What's your motor like? When you're up against the other guys on the depth chart. So 4A teams to me are, when you're going against this low of a classification, I'm not saying that 2A is low, but it's quite a difference, quite a gap.
I'll be excited to see what Efren Hurtado does against a 4A offensive line, considering he's only a 200-pound defensive end. But, I mean,
he's going to wreak havoc.
Yeah. Technique. He's got good technique.
He does.
That's why.
Relentless motor for sure.
Guys, let's stick with the theme of tough games to pick. Listen, we are not taking cupcakes, ladies and gentlemen. These are tough games to decide on. Washougal at Toppenish. Listen, I'm telling you right now, this is a tough game to figure out, guys. Toppenish just got walloped by Royal, but this happened last year. This exact thing happened last season. Royal just dusted off Toppenish, no problems. And then the very next week, Toppenish just went to Washougal and pounded Washougal in their own backyard. This year, Washougal goes back to Toppenish. We're in the same situation. The Wildcats are looking to lick their wounds, and the Panthers are going to come in after a victory. I think that the Panthers are in a great position here in this one with the quarterback play a year better and, his wide receivers. That DeShazier guy that you mentioned, Tyson, Harry DeShazier, caught the first touchdown of the season for Washougal. I mean, they've got more than one guy. I'm ultimately, though, having a very, very big problem picking in this game because I do believe that Toppenish has the capabilities here. I'm going Washougal on the road, the redemption tour, but man, this is difficult.
Yeah, I got Washougal too. I don't know that Othello has the offensive firepower.
Toppenish.
Excuse me. Yeah. Toppenish. I'm not sure they have the offensive firepower to stick with the Washougal because, a kid like B is going to make a few plays in that game. And, Toppenish has, they're a tough team top to bottom every single year. But I think that B, he probably will be playing with even more confidence this year than last year, knowing he's committed going to Idaho and he's the man.
Yeah, I agree, and I have Washougal as well. It was one of the easier ones in my eyes, just because I like Washougal a lot. And
don't say that.
And I think he's gonna have a big game again.
The
confidence I agree with as well.
The only thing that makes me happy about that statement, Devin, is that if you're wrong, we're all wrong. But
Yeah.
but man, I'm telling you, this is not going to be just that. It's not that easy. I'm telling you right now. I would not be shocked to see Toppenish win this game. So
You wait until it's like 35-14.
I still won't be confident.
I agree.
You agree it's going to be 35-14?
Yep. I think
Oh.
I think you're going to have to score at least 28 to beat Washougal this whole season.
Yeah.
You're probably right.
Toppenish can't do that.
Yeah.
All right, next tough game on the docket. Tumwater at North Kitsap. I don't know how tough this is for our pick'ems, but I still think it's a tough game. These two teams played last year. It was a 1-point game. Both of them struggled to score. After week 1, I don't think Tumwater is going to have a problem scoring, and I think North Kitsap can also hold their own. They've got the 7-11 wide receiver, Logan Sloman. This is going to be a really, really, really good game. That's why I went Tumwater.
What about you, Devin?
I went North Kitsap purely for Logan Sloman. I think he is just special. Like you said, he's always open, always gets open, and he catches almost everything that comes his way. You know, I think he's a big difference maker, and maybe a couple touchdowns coming against Tumwater.
He's a great route runner.
Oh man,
Such a good route runner.
I'm going Tumwater because they were the one team in the 2A that I found so far that had so many good players. I couldn't even list them all.
They had success last year. I mean, beating North Kitsap, the only team that did beat them before North Kitsap lost in the championship game to Linden. You know, there's a lot of connections between Tumwater and Linden. You know, they're like pretty much the only two teams that play for championships in 2A. So, yeah. So I mean, I have a hard time going against the T-Birds here.
I really like their new quarterback too. It didn't last year, wasn't it?
Overbay.
Overbay, yeah. They had a hard time throwing the ball, and that kid they have playing for him this year, what's his name? Ethan. Oh shoot, give me a second and find his name. But I think he's really going to be what lifts that team to the next dimension this year, just in terms of being able to move the ball through the air, and they got plenty of guys to distribute to. Ethan Kastner is his name, but they got plenty of size on that team. I think it's a redemption year for Tumwater for sure.
All right. So 2-1, there we go. Tumwater, Devin, chance to pick up a game on both of us. Next game on the docket, Spanaway Lake at Mount Si. You know, I don't know what I'm getting here with Mount Si in their week 1, essentially now in week 2. Spanaway Lake, they found themselves in a dogfight week 1 with Gig Harbor. I think Mount Si is a safer play in this one. They're going to be fresher, and they're going to be playing at home, and they're classification higher. So I'm going Mount Si.
Yeah, me too. Devin, do you happen to know who they are starting at quarterback? I know they had a kid that's a year older, but that Nate Donovan has a ton of attention for being as young as he is.
Yeah, let me look real fast.
I was curious if they ever decided. I would assume it's Donovan based off the hype I've seen, but
from what I've heard, I don't believe it is.
Okay, they had I know they have a kid that's a year or two ahead of him. But they've also got Bo Phillips. He's a great two-way player. Running back, linebacker, I believe. He might play some like nickel. I ultimately went Mount Si, but I don't feel super confident in it just because, like you said, we don't know what we're going to see. But I know they got a big offensive line, and they've kind of reloaded to look like they did about 6-7 years ago.
Yeah, that Mount Si quarterback is Tyler DeCola.
Okay. Yep.
He's just 6 foot, 180 pound, runs like a 4.8 40, I think.
He's senior.
He's a senior this year. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Nate Donovan he's gonna be really good.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with Spanaway Lake on this one. I think Clemens is just too good of that two-way player. You know, he's gonna get his touches on offense, and he's also gonna make plays on defense. And if those plays on defense lead to more touchdowns, Spanaway Lake's gonna be hard to beat. And it was close last week against Gig Harbor, I know, but I have faith in them, and we're gonna go with that, even though it's playing up a whole class.
Who did
right.
you say, Devin or Nick? Excuse me.
Mount Si.
Oh, sorry. Okay, making sure I put these into the
alone
old
on like 3 of
spreadsheet.
these.
Yeah.
All right, next game, Curtis at Sumner, SPSL special. Curtis, fresh off of a very good win against Olympia, and then Sumner also taking care of business week 1. I got Sumner.
I got Curtis in this one. I think Rocco's too good.
I went Sumner. Devin, you're alone again. I really Rocco's one of my favorite players, but I think if there's a team in the 4A that gets by off of discipline and the way they play more than anybody else, it's Sumner. And that's kind of what you need when you're playing a quarterback like Koch.
Yeah, that one was tough to pick.
Yeah, it's a tough interleague match.
They're all tough to pick. There's no easy ones here. This is what we choose. Lake Stevens at Bellevue. See, it's tough. Someone else start.
I'll start this one. I'm gonna go on a limb and say Lake Stevens. I think how they played last week was, too impressive. They shut down one of the best quarterbacks, in the state, and an offense that is easily able to put up 35 plus. They have a couple guys on defense: Mason Turner, Jackson Lewis, a couple. I think Jackson is a defensive back, and I think Mason's a linebacker, if I remember correctly. But I think Lake Stevens is going to win that game over Bellevue, even though I did pick Bellevue to win the state title.
Yeah, I also chose Lake Stevens. They have that defensive end too. What's his name? Bryce.
Bryce
Slezak. Yeah, he's a stud as well. And I think they're just going to have too high-powered of an offense. I think Bellevue's probably best games are going to be the games they can keep under 30 points for the most part. Not that they have any slouches on their team on the offensive side, but if this game turns into a shootout, I'll take, despite Razor having such a strong arm and he's a good quarterback himself, I'll take Colton Matson and that what seems to be like, they were known last year as the running back team, having both the Lamars, and it's like Jay Sean didn't even have to do much this year or this last week. It was all Matson. So
I think he still had over 100 yards too.
He on like 9 touches, for sure. But they threw the ball 36 times, so I think they're a team that can beat you in a multitude of ways, and they'll find a way no matter what.
Yeah, clean sweep here for Lake Stevens. Even though this game is on the road, they beat Bellevue last season, and I feel ultimately better about them being able to come up with a more explosive play and to throw the football with more success. If Bellevue does not have the ability to consistently move the chains and keep the ball out of their hands, I think Lake Stevens will put up some points and get up by a couple scores, and it'll be incredibly difficult for Bellevue to generate that type of comeback offense that you really need to come up with in crunch time to close the gap and put some pressure back on your opponent. And Lake Stevens is a team that really is going to hurt themselves too much either. So I would say Lake Stevens wins it.
Clean sweep.
All right, next one. They're still tough, guys. Linden Christian at Archbishop Murphy. This might have seemed like a laugher last season because Archbishop was, winless. But a little bit different story this year after Archbishop goes on the road and takes down 3A Lake Washington, and Linden Christian loses to Lakeside 9 Mile Falls. But they're on the road again, guys. So opening up the season with 2 road games. Good news is for Linden Christian is that they don't have to travel a whole lot of distance, still an hour away south, but much more manageable here. Devin, let's have you go first on this one.
This one was hard for me. I do love Linden Christian, and was talking highly of Archbishop Murphy during the preseason show and of this earlier in this episode. I think it goes back and forth. I think it's another low-scoring game that both of them had last week. Maybe both under 20, 28 points-ish. I will go with Archbishop Murphy with the upset. I do think the Lynx are going to start out 0-2. Joven Shocker really impressed me last week for Archbishop Murphy, and they're young and they have a lot of targets. You know, Jack Sivers is big, 6'5", tight end D lineman. Yeah, that's my pick. Have the Lynx start out 0-2 for the first time, and I don't even know who win.
Yeah, I mean, me either, but I'm going Linden Christian here on this one. Lakeside Nine Mile Falls was a program that arrived last year and, showed that this year that they're here for business as well. But I think Jeremiah Wright is still going to be the better of the two quarterbacks overall in the game. And, I'd like to see them control the ball and, do what they did last season predominantly. And that's, run the ball with good success and play really good defense. And I think that this is a much bigger test for Archbishop Murphy than Lake Washington, although Lake Washington is a good team and they're a higher classification overall. That's kind of the same thing with where LC's at in this position. They're a lower class team, but it doesn't really matter. They've proven it that they can take on teams that are larger than them and come away with victories. So I'm going LC in this one.
I'm with Devin. I took Archbishop. I kind of mentioned in our little chat that I think Joven could be, by the time the end of the year, he could be the best quarterback in the NWC. And there's some good quarterbacks in there. But as far as looking the part, Brant Hepner obviously looks like freaking Justin Herbert, but from a body type standpoint. But Shoker's 220, and he's got a big arm that he can throw off his back foot from the far hash to the sideline. I see them gouging Linden Christian a couple times in the first half and creating a gap that, frankly, Linden Christian, that I don't think they're known to be a huge aerial team as good as Wright is. I just think that big play potential out of that arm is going to be the difference in the game.
But in reality, also Jeremiah does a lot of running.
Well, right. That's what I mean. Yeah. As far as chunk plays go, I think it's going to be easier for Archbishop. And frankly, last year, despite their struggles, the strength of their team was their offensive line. Mm-hmm. So you pair that with a new quarterback that can make all the throws. Last year, their quarterback pretty much could only run the ball. It'll be a tough game for Linden Christian, but I'm agreeing. I'm siding with Dev.
Hey, they're all tough games, right? That's what we're doing.
They are. That they are.
Let's do another tough game, guys. Montesano at Aberdeen. We just had Aiden Watkins on here a little bit ago from Aberdeen, 4 touchdowns last week. Montesano, man, they've already delivered a huge blow to a team that's a classification higher than them. In the Black Hills Wolves, they play in the same league as Aberdeen. This is another one of those local affairs in terms of like rivalry games. Tough to pick, but I'm going to stick with Montesano here, despite how well-spoken and likable Aiden Watkins is. I want to pick Aberdeen just for him. I'll say this, Aiden, go get him. I hope you get the win, but I'm going to pick Montesano in this one.
Yeah, I think it is a tough game. I think that with Aiden last week, how he played, and he's a great leader for the team. And, I think that they're going to go surprise a lot of people. And I think that, they're going to upset Montesano. And I think Aberdeen is going to get the win.
Yeah, I had Montesano written down earlier today, but like 30 seconds ago, I just changed it to Aberdeen. Basically, Montesano's week 1 win, I think it is the reason I, at first glance and first hunch, I guess, chose Montesano. But unless there's some players I'm missing in Montesano, I think Aberdeen has more difference makers, and that's why I'm going Aberdeen.
All right, next game, Woodland at La Center. Both teams starting off with a win. Woodland taking on a 1A team here. They just took on a 2B team the week before. But La Center, their second straight week taking on a 2A Greater St. Helens League opponent. And, I'm interested to see how this one plays out. I think both these teams can do a lot of really good things. The venue is what's got me choosing Le Center here in this one. I think Woodland's capable of winning the game, but the venue has got me choosing Le Center.
I've also got Le Center in this one. I think they're just a little too deep. I don't think there's a whole lot of defense in that Greater St. Helens League, and I think Le Center is going to be too stout of a defense for Woodland.
I agree with what you guys are saying as well, and I almost went Le Center, but I changed it as well, and went with my gosh, I can't talk. Went with Woodland to win that game, but I think it's going to be a great one as well, really close. And Le Center's defense might be too good, like you guys are mentioning.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, Woodland's got a really, really, really good running back in Elijah Anderson, class of 25. But Le Center's got dudes as well, and I expect this game to be very, very physical and very tough. Next one, WF West Linden. I still think this is a tough game to decide on. The venue, though, again, plays a big factor in it for me, and then the result off of last year's game does as well. I still like Linden in this one to get the win, and I think that WF West probably has a few more questions that need answered rather than Linden.
I agree with that as well. I'm also going Linden. I think Hepner has a better day throwing the ball, but I think Linden goes back to running it a lot more, and getting back to just pounding the ball.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're going to want to keep the ball out of Brumfield's hands, and when it is in his hands, Charlie Ayer's probably going to be running him down. So that's I think Linden wins this one easy, something like 28-10.
Yeah, I like that.
Next game, Fear the Deer Park against Kashmir on the road at Kashmir. Tyson, break it down for us.
It's not even close. Kashmir wins 48-13.
Oh my, Deer Park. What?
Sorry. Kashmir has a bunch of rabid dogs on their team. Go watch some of the film for those kids and just see the thump. I mentioned it preseason episode, Joshua Moros. I don't think I've ever seen a kid's film that's consistently hitting people harder than he does. And they have let me pull up that little list real quick, but because I'm forgetting the kid's name off the top of my head, but he's a 6'3", kind of plays linebacker and in the secondary, plays tight end for him. And he's getting looks at the next level. Goes by the name of, well, Devin, you do your pick and I'll get back to it. Or one of you guys go for it.
Yeah, so I also went with Kashmir because I have seen the film on some guys like you mentioned. I do think those guys are dogs. I did mention Deer Park as maybe a team that could have been in the top 10 earlier, but I just don't think Deer Park's got enough oomph, to get by Kashmir.
Yeah, the kid I was thinking of is Dallin Smart. He's a real difference maker, and then Prin Fox on that line. Yeah, they just got some. They've got some. They remind me of Nooksack. Really, if I compared two teams on paper to each other from a physicality standpoint, those are probably the two besides Royal, because they are who they are. But that's why they're 2 and 3. Nooksack and Kashmir. For me, there's nobody from a physicality standpoint that matches up with them.
Yes, if you're watching this and you have not watched Prin Fox's highlights from week 1, go find it on Twitter and watch it. He is a monster. Yeah. 2026, but he is.
Is he 6'4", 270 or something like that?
Yes, and he moves so well.
Yeah, he does.
Run over everybody.
It's a big man.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
Pancake.
All right, so obviously I'm going to go with Kashmir in this one as well.
Fear the Deer,
What
though.
about Deer Park? Yeah, come on.
Fear the Deer, baby. I'm telling you right now. You better watch out. Yeah, Kashmir.
I will say Deer Park's one of my favorite towns in this side of the mountains, so I'll give him that. I do love Kashmir too, though. But
I'm going to go hunting in Deer Park this year.
You'll have to go a ways to find some.
Yeah, good deal. All right, so the next one is obviously the hardest game to pick in the entire thing here. Napavine at Alaska. So Napavine.
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 All right, perfect. Next one, also extremely tough. Othello at Royal. Who wants to say Royal first?
Royal.
Royal.
Yeah. I'm obviously choosing Royal too, but I think it's a closer game than.
I absolutely agree with that. I think Othello
Yeah.
will keep this one close, and they will bring that downhill running style and look to control the ball. But man,
So like over 14, under 20.
Yeah, I think all red's too much for them, and Royal's just too well oiled of a machine, as Tyson puts it.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
All right, so back to the hard games. Highline at Kennedy Catholic. I learned my lesson last week. I'm not betting against Highline again. So Pirates.
I'm also going Highline. I think Ronan is going to have a great game once again, and they're ready. I think they are really a 2A contender. Like I slept on them a little bit at the start of the year too. We talked about them a little, but I didn't think that they were going to be one of those top 3 teams, but they really are, and I think they're going to show it again this week.
Well, you can bring Coach Cooper on next week and have me explain myself to him live on air again, because I'm taking Kennedy Catholic.
Oh man, the more times you bet against him, the better he's going to do.
Yeah,
if I'm the motivation he needs or wants, I'll take it. At least he'll remember my name and maybe follow me on Twitter.
You're on the list, man.
That's perfect.
All right, sticking with tough games to pick. We went a little bit off the path here. Tootle Lake at Ilwaco, gentlemen. Both teams coming off of a win. Tootle Lake on the road took down Morton White Pass 24-12, and Ilwaco shut out North Beach of Ocean Shores 47-zip. I don't know. You got the Ducks and the Fishermen here. Tough battle of nature's foes. I'm going home team here, and I'm going to go Fishermen, but the Ducks have got me, I don't like the name Ducks, but still, I kind of want to pick them. Going Fishermen.
I like the Ducks logo, not because it's truly like Donald Duck.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've looked at it, but
oh yeah,
it's probably one of my favorite logos in the state. But I'm taking Ilwaco just because they put up 47 in week 1. I don't know anything about either one of these two teams, though.
I also don't, and I went with Tootle Lake. Did I say it?
Tootle Lake, baby.
Go with Tootle Lake.
It should be the Turtles. I don't know why they're the Ducks. Tootle Lake. I mean,
that does sound better.
Have you ever seen that one of that kid where he says, "I like turtles"? It's like,
yeah.
Tootle Lake.
Okay, so we've got 2 more, and then we're all wrapped up here. Next game, Ridgeline at Mount Spokane. Ridgeline's about as close as you can get to the border of Washington and Idaho, other than Pullman. So, I don't know what that really means, but I think Mount Spokane's probably the better team, and they're at home. Both teams won in week 1. I don't know a tremendous amount about Ridgeline here in the regard of who they got for guys on their team that are going to be major impact guys or college recruit guys, but Mount Spokane's got a couple of them, and I like them for that reason.
Yeah, same here. I think, as far as candidates to lead the state in receiving and whatnot, Gardner's at the top, especially in the 3A class, or one of them. And they get also, I don't know much about Ridgeline either. So I think Mount Spokane wins by at least 2 scores.
Yeah, I also went Mount Spokane. I think Gardner is really talented. I think his 200 and what did he have?
220 and 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, I think that 220 was 10th most in the conference ever, receiving yards wise in a game.
Yeah, stud.
All right, guys, 1 more to do, and we're
Wait, don't we have 2 more? GK Puyallup?
Oh yes, that's right, 2 more. GK Puyallup. We'll save that one for last. Next game, Stanwood at Marysville Pilchuck.
Stanwood.
Yeah, I went Stanwood in this one. I mean, I don't know much about Marysville Pilchuck in regards to how good they really are. They did get a win in their first game of the season, but I think Stanwood's, better. Baumgartner down with it.
Yeah, Bumgarner's gonna have over 120 yards. That's my prediction right there. He had 77 last week. I think we'll go for over 120 against Pilchuck. Why not? But I also got Stanwood.
Yeah, me too.
All right, now our final game: Graham Kapowson at Puyallup. Dun dun dun. Tough game to decide. Yeah, that's
No, the weapons are just, we talked about it earlier, just too much.
If Puyallup still had Wyatt Gordon and the kid that ended up going to Air Force, I think it was last year, also played safety for him, I'd feel maybe different. But yeah, GK.
I agree. Yeah.
They had Mentink, right? Last year, is that Puyallup?
He's Sumner.
Okay, Sumner. Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I guess I can't really go against the grain here. I mean,
do it.
Do it. You'll just fall further behind.
Yeah. Or I'll keep pace regardless. I mean, I can't really pick against Graham Kapowson, honestly. I mean, I think that they're extremely good team. I mean, it took a really good team last year to beat them in the playoffs, just to eliminate them, and they were state champs the year before that, and people were wanting to write them off last year, before they ultimately fell short. So, I mean, with the additions that they've made at wide receiver, I mean, how can you pick against them? I mean, I'm not spending all this time building up a big game against Emerald Ridge for them to lose, here on the road to Puyallup. I mean, I think that they'll both be undefeated when they play each other, and I think it's going to be essentially for the league championship. So, in order for that to happen, I got to pick GK, and they got to win. So I'm going to pick GK, and they're going to win, or they're going to lose and make us all look stupid. So
they won't.
No.
Weapons are.
I don't think they lose till a state title game, if that.
Yep, I agree with that statement.
Yeah, they may not. I picked Emerald Ridge though, so I'm on it. Let's go, Jake Stockel.
Hey, I just wanted to do a couple quick callbacks to earlier. Small school guys that were worth mentioning for performances of the week. One of them I just assumed, but Lance Gogol, the kid from Chelan, when we talked about them scoring 56 on Brewster, I see now that he had 190 rushing yards and 4 on the ground, and also had a pick 6. So he accounted for 35 of those 56 points on his own. And then I mentioned that 6'3", 230-pound running back for Friday Harbor. His name's Chris Gustafson. He had 172 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns. So it's kind of some last-minute stuff I just saw come up tonight, stats-wise, but they did both obviously deserve a shout-out with those performances.
I'll throw out a couple names as well while we're at it. Ellensburg running back Colton Magruder. He had 16 carries for 175 yards, 2 touchdowns. Who else do we not talk about? Roy Lockley III from Bethel. He had 150 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns, also a sack on defense. Austin Clark from West Valley, 131 all-purpose yards, a touchdown, plus 8 tackles on the defense side. Just a couple more names.
Let's throw in some bonus real quick here. What are you guys thinking about the NFL this weekend? We opener, the Rams coming to town and take on the Seahawks in week number 1. I mean, rumor has it that my number 1 pick from my fantasy draft, Cooper Kupp, might not play. So obviously, that doesn't.
First pick.
Oh, well, he was the number 9 pick overall, but in the first round. Yeah, I mean, it's a super flex league, Devin. So that means that you could play 2 quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And so it's like, the first 5 guys were quarterbacks. So it's like, do I take Cooper Kupp or fucking Justin Fields? And I'm like, no way I'm taking Justin Fields in the first round. It's like, I got to take a guy who, was going to set fantasy records. He won the Triple Crown 2 years ago. So it's like, if he's healthy, he's going to get – and plus, here's the other thing is the Rams' defense is going to be bad. So I think the Seahawks are going to score a lot this week and win.
I think so, too. I also have a 2 QB league. I picked 10th, and I landed Justin Herbert somehow.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah.
Nice.
I also think Seahawks win by a lot, though. Hopefully JSN plays, but I don't think he'll be much.
He was back in practice. Yeah, he was already back in practice.
Not getting hits, though, right? I know it's a wrist, but still.
running routes
Hey.
and catching balls with a broken bone in your wrist or whatever, it's still dangerous. I mean,
If he
Is that
doesn't,
worth playing week 1 against the Rams?
I mean,
no, we have Bobo.
Yeah,
The 5-flat 40-yard dash receiver that gets
Big
open
Bobo.
24/7. I hope that dude stays around forever and he gains 20 pounds and they move him to tight end and we have our own little freaking poor man's Travis Kelce one day.
Oh my
Get-
god,
He
Dude,
looks like him when he moves. That's all I know. He's just smaller.
bro. So during the game on Friday that I was streaming, there was another fantasy draft because I'm in 2 leagues, and dude, I had to auto pick and I had the 5th pick overall, and it auto picked Travis Kelce for me at 5. I'm like, oh my god, what the are you doing? It's like I would
That's
never.
not bad.
Oh, it's not bad. A tight end.
Is it PPR? Yeah, tight end that goes for 1,400 yards and 13
He's like
touchdowns every
33
year.
or 34 years old.
Not mentally. That dude is 19.
They also
Oh.
have more targets on the receiver side, so it's going to be all
Exactly.
Kelce. Yeah, he'll be.
Yeah.
If it's PPR, then you did fine.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's PPR. It's just
He'll
I'd
get
be
you 17 a
satisfied
week.
with that. Easily.
yeah, but my running back situation was terrible. I ended up
Yeah,
getting like Brees Hall, my first round pick, and
That's
then
a good one.
yeah, but he's sharing carries with Dalvin Cook. He's coming off an ACL injury. Like there's
Running backs.
rather have.
I'm old school where I hoard running backs and I love them because I remember as a kid. I remember as a kid having LaDainian and Sean Alexander in the same year, and I went undefeated. I was like 11 years old. I've been running back poor, basically. It's a pun kind of, but ever since. But I mean, who's even worth taking in the first round? Jonathan Taylor's not playing. You got Saquon, Christian McCaffrey.
CMC's probably the only one.
Truthfully, I mean, if Saquon he had a good year last year, and if he could repeat his rookie year, he's up there. A guy that could Najee could have a good bounce back
in the first round. Maybe not at number 5 overall, but I'm a believer in that guy and in being able to play for a couple more seasons and still be truly, truly effective. I'm with you on CMC too. I think. Well, yeah, but still, he's built different. He's like LeBron, so
Calm down. He's not like LeBron.
Oh, LeBron sucks. Yeah, he's
Calm
way
down.
better than LeBron. Yeah, LeBron's not even any good.
He'll dunk
This
on
is not a
LeBron.
basketball thing, so I'm not talking about this.
Yeah, no. Jordan would have shut LeBron out 11-0 1-on-1. It wouldn't even have been a game.
I agree that MJ is the GOAT. I'm just saying LeBron does not suck.
Oh, he's probably the worst football player in the NBA.
Hey, that's a good statement right there.
Oh, I don't know. There's probably there are some. LeBron was a good wide receiver tight end. He was really good.
Draymond played at Michigan State, right?
Yeah, he did play at Michigan State. Yeah.
Can you imagine that though? Like a 6'9" guy that can actually be powerful and move like that. It's crazy though.
That'd be insane.
I think there's a reason it's never happened though.
Yeah, well,
you lose all your leverage at that point unless you're going to
exactly.
play at 6'4" the whole time and stay crouched. It's those little Aaron Donald guys kick your butt.
I know, right? Yeah. Whoever came up with draft measurables that had Donald slip to the 20s, that's just ridiculous. The moment the Rams picked him, I knew that guy was going to be a problem.
Did you see that his clone is in Tampa Bay now?
Yes, and he came from Pitt too, and he was a guy that I wanted the Seahawks to try to get desperately because they needed some line help. It's like
he's literally a clone of Aaron Donald.
Yeah, this guy's exactly like Aaron Donald. He's way better than what Jared Reed, Puna Ford, those types of guys. It's like, yeah,
Mario Edwards.
Yeah, I'm so. Oh god,
Draymond Jones should be improved or ahead improvement though. For sure.
No, don't get me wrong. Jared Reed being back is going to make a big difference. I mean, he's a guy who can hold his own.
He's a good role guy.
Yeah, he can generate some pressures and stuff like that. But ultimately, they're gonna need to survive. With their pass rush. I think that their run defense is going to be a lot better with Wagner back in there. I don't think it's just that Wagner's coming back to middle linebacker. Obviously, that helps a lot. Especially when you got a guy that's 120, 130 tackles guaranteed every single season. The freedom that Jordan Brooks now has to move over to the outside linebacker position, where he's much more of a natural at that position than he is as a middle linebacker. Like, he doesn't have to worry about making the calls now. There's certain things that go along with being a middle linebacker that, you got to get everybody in the right spot. I mean, that's why Luke Kuechly probably ultimately retired early, is because he's sick of telling all these bozos that don't know where they're supposed to be pre-snap what to do, and he's out sacrificing his body for them. It's like, Wagner, Ray Lewis, those types of guys, it's like Urlacher, they help make everybody else so better. I mean, Urlacher helped make Lance Briggs, right? So I'm not saying that, Jordan Brooks is Lance Briggs, but he makes a lot of tackles. He broke the record, I think, for tackles by a rookie when he, was first drafted and played for the Hawks. So it's a big deal to have him at outside linebacker. I think their linebacking core, their defense will be top 10 this year. So, yeah, I mean, it's their D-line and their pass pressure. I've heard so much about freaking Darrell Taylor, ever since that Darrell Taylor was talked about. And I have hardly seen him do shit. Like, I'd rather have 50% effort Jadeveon Clowney sometimes than that guy,
Oh,
I don't know about that. Taylor had 9.5 sacks last year. I mean, that's still better than Michael Bennett did in his best seasons as a Seahawk. And I don't know if you watched any preseason, but boy, Mafe, it was all over the field. And he's what, 6'4", 260, and runs a 4.48 or something ridiculous. Then you had Nwosu into the mix, who was great. Probably our most consistent player we had last year defensively.
That's why he got the extension.
I think our pass rush will be fine. It's the run game, and only carrying 6 defensive linemen that I think is the biggest concern.
I agree with that, because who's going to be in the middle? Like, I know we got Jaren Reed or whatever, but
Draymond Jones is supposed to play that technique, as far as I know.
Yeah, I don't really know how it's going to shake out, because the way their team's built, it's more like they're going to run a 3-4 most of the year, and that's what 100%. Makes me wonder if Brooks is going to play inside with Bobby, and you'll see Nwosu, Taylor, and
Devin Bush.
We've got Bush too.
Yep. And I think you will see the 3-4, like you're saying.
Yeah, because they're going to use a lot of those outside linebacker guys like Taylor and Mafe and Nwosu rushing the passer, especially on third down.
And Brooks did just fine at middle linebacker last year.
He did fine. He excelled, though, at outside linebacker the whole time that he was there. So,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
I loved Cody Barton. I mean, I was probably one of the few of all my friends that did, but obviously it's going to help a lot to have Bobby in there.
Oh, man.
Jake Moe said Seahawks. There we go. That's all you got to say, Jake. Seahawks. That's right. Yeah, Huskies, man. I mean, they just beat the shit out of Boise State, man. That was a really good win. I was really impressed. I mean, wasn't so impressed with Oregon beating Portland State by 100, but they still did.
Yeah, who do the Dogs have this weekend? Isn't it
Kent State?
Oh yeah, and then Michigan State the following week, right?
Pretty sure it's Kent State, right?
Yeah, and then I think Michigan State the week after that.
That'll be a good game.
Yeah, hey, Don James's old program, Kent State.
I'm pretty sure
Kalen DeBoer football.
Didn't Kalen DeBoer come from Kent State too?
Yeah, that's what they have in common.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But we got Tulsa this week.
Oh, really?
Tulsa, and then it goes Michigan State, and then we start the Pac-12 slate against Cal.
Yeah, as we're talking college football, I just want to say a shout out to Scott Trey Humphrey.
Yes.
Last year, running back from Rainier Beach. He got freshman National Player of the Week.
Nice. Yes,
yeah. In the FDS, yeah.
Is that Montana State, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The Bobcats.
Bobcats.
Yeah.
Two or three touchdowns. I don't know. But, yeah, he played awesome.
And Bozeman. Yeah. Yeah, and Hayden John getting his first tackle. Lamar getting a touchdown.
That's right, yep.
I tried to look and see if there was any other kids that really got in, and I can't think of any off the top of my head. Kate Eldridge, I don't think played.
Nope.
Lamar almost averaged like 8.5 yards a carry.
Yeah, well, so did their whole team, but no slight to Jaden, obviously. But
I think next year Jaden's going to be a good big-time playmaker.
Oh, if he's getting playing time already,
he's getting playing time when it's 70 to nothing. So
Right.
Yeah.
But he was in that game even in the second quarter. I was kind of following
It
it.
was like
slowly.
40-0.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Exactly.
I saw the Hatchet brothers are both backups on the offensive line depth chart for UW.
They're saying
backup?
I think he got hurt
Okay, yeah.
like 2 to 3 weeks ago. I want to say he was projected to start, but then they also talking about this offseason, they were talking about using him at tight end, not to
Really?
catch passes, but as a blocking tight end to where they could kind of add him as a sixth lineman. And then Landon, I think, is the backup center. So shoot, he could play at any point. Yeah.
Yeah, the depth chart came out before the game, and they were both listed as backups.
Yeah.
Landon's a stud.
Yeah, he's a cool guy too.
He is.
Well, we should keep track of these guys and stuff, and some of the dudes from Washington that played the last few years and what they're up to.
Mhm.
For sure, it's fun to see, especially somebody like that who we got to talk to.
Yep. I think Jake Mason's also on that UW team, right?
Yep.
Probably not playing, obviously, but
yeah,
maybe he's redshirting or not. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard anything about it, but I think he's wearing number 56 or something. Is from a picture I saw. But I'm glad they're using him at defensive end, where he talked about us. Oh, I had schools looking at me as a center. I'm like, okay, the Whatcom County's all-time sack leader. You're going to stick him on the O-line?
Somewhere where he didn't even play in high school?
Yeah, exactly. Makes no sense. Fit a square peg into a round hole right there.
Oh, yes. Shout out. Jake just said Schleckenbaker. Shout out to Jivorchensky. He went to Squalicum, and one of my good friends' wife, who just got married over the summer, that's his sister. So he was at the wedding, and he looks massive, man. He's 6'3", and he's 215, 220 now. He's put on tons of weight. I don't know what kind of playing time he's getting for the Cougars.
He got a carry in that game last week for 4 yards, it looks like.
Awesome. Yeah, I think he can move up the depth chart as well. He's a big guy now. He just looks super fit and crazy shape.
Well, and I don't think he ended up playing last year, so he's still a freshman, isn't he?
Yeah, it should be a redshirt. Yeah. Leighton played last year. And he's a sophomore this year. But yeah, no, is it Javensky? Because that was Javensky. Just
Javensky, yeah.
Yeah, Javensky, yeah. But I had a chance to watch Schlenbaker play.
People said he goes by Ben. Yeah, that's right.
Ben. Yeah. I hate that though. Like when you can't pronounce someone's name and you want to shorten it and call him something completely different, unless it's his idea, which maybe it was.
The thing that happened when he was little and he got adopted into the family.
Wasn't it his parents that started calling him Ben? I thought I read an article about that.
The new adopted parents, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, he came from where was it? Like Cameroon or?
Yep.
No, I think it was. I'm pretty sure it was Honduras.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, or Haiti. I think I was pretty sure.
I think you're right. It was during that whole. Yeah,
Haiti. Right. But yeah, I saw him play in the postseason. I actually streamed a game with him in it. I got film of him, just lighting it up. Him and Leighton Smithson against Ridgefield, and yeah, I mean, they threw a pass to him out of the backfield, and like a dude came up to blindside hit him as soon as he caught it, and he literally ended up trucking him without even knowing he was there, and then still stayed on his feet and figured out a way to get 9 yards and a first down on a big third down early in the game, and he had 3 or 4 rushing touchdowns. But man, he was an absolute monster. It was so cool seeing him against Wyatt Bartroff and Danny McDonald, and it was just he was a man amongst those men, and it was Washington State's getting a good player here. So
yeah, he was born in Haiti, and it looks like he appeared in one game last year. Had 4 carries for 50 yards, including a 34-yarder at Stanford, but he still was able to redshirt.
Yeah,
one game not enough.
Yeah. Ask Sam Heward. He played a little bit and managed to get a red shirt out of it. So
yeah, it'd be interesting to see what they do. Speaking of which, I mean, if you're talking WAC schools, I guess we mentioned Idaho, but
I thought he plays for Cal Poly.
Yeah, he does. Sheldon Cross went down there and followed him down there as his OC. That'll be interesting to see what they do. That conference plays a lot better football than people give it credit for, especially in the last few years. I think, 10, 15 years ago, you mentioned Idaho and people would just be like, what? They actually have some pretty good players over there, and they're getting some good kids to. I mean, obviously Holden B, we talked about him. We got Hayden John last year, Carlos Matheny, who he played in that game too for Idaho last week. Him and Hayden both did.
Nice.
Well, you can bet UW ain't scheduling any more FCS opponents after what Montana did. So,
did you see that hit the kid from Montana put on that guy?
no.
Oh my God! Bussin' with the Boys shared it, and it was probably one of the hardest. I reposted it, but it was probably one of the hardest hits I've ever seen. That was legal. And our guy Grady Walker, he's going to Montana. They've signed some good players over there. They're not a bad program.
Yeah,
Wyoming,
Clifton McDonald, I think. I know him. So he's
nice
a transfer from. Gosh, where's he from? Some other FCS school.
Right on, guys. Well,
Clifton McDowell.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we just hit the 3 hour 30-minute mark, so it's about time for our lunch break.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, lots of stuff to talk about and dive into this week, and it was awesome to have Aiden Watkins on from Aberdeen High School and spend about 15 minutes with us. We can get to know him and get to know his team, the Aberdeen Bobcats, and they're a part of our weekly pick'ems coming into next week. Our 20 games of the week, and I'll be interested to see how we do, gentlemen. Week 1 was a lot of fun. Hopefully week 2 will provide us with just as many interesting topics and things to review coming up next week, and I look forward to some more highlights being featured on the show. So continue to send them to myself and Devin and Tyson if you want to be featured, and we'll hopefully get you all on the highlight reel. Gentlemen, anything else to say before we log off for the night?
Are you calling a game this weekend?
I am. It's now the Arlong Lumberjacks' turn at Longview Memorial Stadium. They are 1-0, and they are going to be taking on Mercer Island, 3A opponents, who got beat by Seattle Prep 52-32. So Mercer Island, can score, but they can also allow some scores too. So I'm hoping that we'll see some touchdowns coming up here on Friday. Mark Morris did not find the end zone on Friday's game against Battleground. They were shut out. So Longview Memorial's new video scoreboard is still looking for a graphic to play after a touchdown. So let's see if Ari Long is able to do it. And that'll be 7:00 free again on YouTube and Facebook.
Right
What day is that? Is that Friday or Thursday?
That's Friday.
Yep.
Tomorrow night I'll be streaming Civil War volleyball. Ari Long, Mark Morris already. First match of the year. Let's go.
There we go. Thursday I'll be at Civic to watch Seaholm and who are they playing? Blaine.
All righty.
Nice.
All right, guys. Well, we know Tyson's going to be watching Moses Lake and Kamiakin. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to stay in touch here, guys, like instantaneously, and yeah, we'll keep on bringing the content for everybody next week. Appreciate everybody watching. Again, I'm Nick Sisson, and that's Devin Record and Tyson McCallum. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Have a great